his laugh, cigarettes curling, smoking his political trap. Michael Vass roars through the screen, he flies, painting red and blue skies with his fiery cry. He's the world's watchdog, calling out the bluff. Right-wing swagger, but his heart's pretty tough. He's a Republican dragon with his truthful slight, fights the battles unseen in the shadows of the night. From policy to passion, he breaks it all down, giving a voice to the voiceless, wearing his crown. Caffeine-fueled mornings, the smoke curls dance, Fluffy at his feet, giving life one more chance. Through algorithms and bias, he cuts straight and clear. Michael's roar echoes in the hemisphere. Michael Vass roars through the screen, he flies, painting red and blue skies with his fiery cry. He's the world's watchdog, calling out the bluff. Right-wing swagger, but his heart's pretty tough. No sound bites allowed is his ultimate creed. A dragon's perspective where facts are the seed. Standing tall on his battlefield of thoughts, guarding the truth that others forgot. Through the screen he flies, painting red and blue skies with his fiery cry. He's the world's watchdog, calling out the bluff. Right-wing swagger, but his heart's pretty tough.
All right, everybody. Hello, and thank you for joining us. This is No Sound Bites Allowed, and I am your host, Michael Voss, the political dragon here in our offices in the Bronx, New York. It is May 11th. It is Mother's Day, and it is currently 2:34. We got off by a minute. We started a minute late there. I apologize for that. But we try to be on time as much as we can. If this is the first time that you're seeing our channel, I want to welcome you and thank you for being part of our audience. We appreciate whether you spend 5 minutes or 5 hours with us. We appreciate that you've given us some of your time. We want you to know we do long-form political commentary, and every week, as you can see, we reach out across the world to every country. We're in Japan, we're in Sweden, we're in India, we're in South Africa, Canada, New York. We reach out across the world, over 100 countries, to hear what you have to say about the issues that affect us all, because we believe in the First Amendment. We believe that you can influence and are impactful on the politics that we all live with every day. And so we hope you'll enjoy this conversation that we're having. It's not a one-way conversation. It's a conversation back and forth. You can reach us on chat, over on X, on Facebook, on YouTube, on Rumble. And of course, you can use a SuperChat or a RumbleRant to get our attention to focus on an issue, whether it's something I'm talking about or if it's something that you're concerned about or if I misunderstand something. Let's have those conversations because the politicians, believe it or not, they are paying attention. They just don't want to tell you that. So with that being said, I'm going to jump right in today. We're a little bit behind. Let me first start off with Happy Mother's Day. That is the most important thing. And as I put into the comments earlier, I want to be very clear. Happy Mother's Day to all the genetic females out there, those women who have given birth to a child. This is your day. If you are someone who is a bureaucratic political category, you're a birthing parent as an example, or what other term may be used out there, go and request a day from that same bureaucracy, and maybe we'll celebrate that. But today is about mothers, like my own mother. I love her very dearly, and I know she doesn't watch this program. She has different politics than me, and that's fine. But I hope that she's having a great day if she does check in. I hope everyone's parents out there, all of your mothers out there, are having phenomenal days. I hope, ladies, that you are having a day of rest and some relaxation and not too hectic with all the kids. Let them take care of you for one day. That's the way it should be. That being said, we have a lot that we're going to talk about. There is breaking news that has been going on with India and Pakistan that is going to impact the world. We were talking a little bit about that last week. There have been more developments. Sadly, it did break out to a shooting war, as we had feared. It got very close to a nuclear war, but it did not go there, although the tensions were very high. And you may be surprised about the reason why there isn't a war continuing at this very moment. You may be surprised who was involved in resolving, or at least temporarily resolving, the issues that are facing India and Pakistan. So we'll talk a little bit about that. We'll talk a little bit about the economy. We'll talk a little bit about Donald Trump, the Ukraine-Russia conflict, and ceasefire that may be occurring there as well. May looks to be like a month where there could be a lot of action, where we could see a lot of ceasefires, not just with Hamas. I know the Pope has asked for a ceasefire in Gaza. There has been a development with Hamas. We should cover that because the mainstream news media really let it slide. We'll talk a little bit about that. We'll be talking about what's happening in the United States with judges, what's happening with mayors, what's happening with our freedoms. Are we losing freedoms as we are being told that we are? Or is it law enforcement and some people just don't like the rules being held to the rules and being accountable in the same way that you and I are? We'll talk about all of that, plus your comments, plus all of your comments. So we'll look forward to having all of those conversations. So let me jump right on in there. And so, as I was saying, I want to start off with something that most people did not hear. This actually happened and it blew past everyone. Now, we have been talking about the hostages being held by Hamas, the hostages that have been tortured and sexually abused for well over 500 days now by Hamas. And in fact, most of them have been killed by Hamas. This is something that you don't hear from Harvard or Columbia. You don't hear this at Cornell University or most of the college campuses across this nation. When the black-clad Antifa mob go into places like the University of Washington, they don't mention that Hamas, they've been torturing and killing hostages that they took on October 7th because of the terror attack that Hamas committed. And if you don't like that, these are all facts that are internationally credibly verified. And if you don't like me mentioning them, I can't help you because that's the truth. It may not match your feelings, but these are the true facts as they exist. Hamas are terrorists, and these are some of the terrorist actions that they have taken over the last more than 500 days. And in particular for the United States, under the Biden administration, we now know that Joe Biden never tried to get a ceasefire, neither in Ukraine, nor did he really try with Gaza. He didn't care. He was more worried about getting to the next election, and that's possibly because he was a part-time zombie president. That is the case as it is. And that's why of the 22 Americans, 34 were killed on October 7th. 22 Americans were taken hostage by Hamas. They were tortured and sexually abused daily, according to the UN, as we found out in December of 2023. And we have no reason to believe that that stopped at any time. We do know that several of those prisoners, including American citizens, were shot very often before they could be rescued by Israeli forces. And we know this, that was last summer, October, in 2024, when one of the few remaining American hostages that were still living was shot in the head literal minutes before they could be rescued by Israeli forces and returned to their loving families. It was done in spite. That's what Hamas has done. As it turns out, there is, out of the 22 Americans that were taken as hostage by Hamas, 3 were released initially in 2023. 1 was released under Donald Trump this year, and 1 American remains alive. That's 5. 5 Americans out of 22. 17 Americans were killed by Hamas. The mainstream media doesn't want to talk about that. They don't want to give you the numbers. They always try to fudge this. They did this under the Biden administration and throughout all of 2024, saying and talking about the hostages as a group, not talking about those that were held by the British citizens that were being held by Hamas, or the Americans, or any of the other 50 nations that had individuals that were being held hostage and tortured by Hamas. These are all civilians, by the way, almost entirely civilians. But there was one American left, one, who is still alive, and America has been negotiating to get that last American citizen released. And this is why America has been involved in the Hamas-Israeli conflict, because they took our people. They killed our civilians without warning because they were terrorists. And this came out a couple of weeks ago, and most people, and I see your comment, Sarah, and I'm going to get to that in one second, but I want to show everyone, this came out from the BBC. It really wasn't covered in the United States. This was back last month, April 15th. Most people missed this. No one talked about this. It's a month old. We lost one of the hostages. The last American hostage disappeared. We don't know what happened to them. Hamas lost them. They are likely dead. Hamas has likely killed 18 Americans out of 22, killed 18 of them. And there's been no media explosion. No one wants to talk about that. As much as we're talking about Ukraine, as much as we're talking now about India and Pakistan, we don't talk about Sudan. We don't talk about what's happening the Dominican Republic and Haiti. We don't talk about that. What's happening to these individuals? I want to point out, they said, Hamas was announcing that they have lost contact with the group holding the soldier Eden Alexander following a direct strike on his location. That's what they claim, that they got hit. They're trying to find them, and out of 251, it was actually 256 hostages taken in 2023 in a terrorist attack by Hamas, 59 are still being held by Hamas. This is 2025. 5 of the hostages in Gaza are believed to be American citizens. This is important. 5 of the hostages in Gaza are believed to be American citizens. Eden Alexander, is the only one still alive. They lost the only remaining American citizen. 17 dead. Why isn't this news? Why aren't we talking about this? Similar numbers and similar situation could be said for those, the 19 British citizens, and there are citizens from all around the world. The only nation that really got all of their citizens back, as far as we know, was Thailand. And this is why I have always said, Thailand should be running the negotiations for the Hamas-Israeli conflict. It should be Thailand. Thailand, which was initially thought to only have 14 of their national citizens being taken by Hamas on October 23rd, 2023. October 7th, 2023. Thailand, we thought they had 14 of their citizens taken away from them. And after negotiations between Thailand and Hamas, we found out there were actually 17. And all 17 were returned to Thailand. They should be running the negotiations. I said that in 2023. I say that today in 2025. Doesn't matter whether it's Trump or Biden, doesn't matter. Thailand should be doing all the negotiating. They have been the single most successful group dealing with the terrorists, Hamas, and getting nationals back home. They should be doing it. Especially now that we know there might only be one American left, and that one American might now be dead. This is a problem of the Biden administration, both Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, and whoever was handling the American government for the 18 hours a day that Joe Biden was incapable, mentally incapable of being president. Whoever those individuals were are responsible for this, and they should never have allowed it to come to this point. And I think the outrage would have been enormous if American citizens knew this. And that's why the mainstream American news media hid this from the American public. And it was not talked about largely internationally. It was, the news is out there, but it wasn't promoted. They glossed past it. They did it, we found out this article on the day Americans were paying taxes. And all the coverage was about taxes, 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 and Trump and tariffs. So we didn't hear about this. And the news media was happy to gloss right past it. I think this is a problem, and it's still ongoing. We need to deal with it. So let me go to the comment here. And again, please like, share, subscribe. Please help us break through the algorithms that hold us, suppress this channel. You want to talk about free speech? I don't have $52 billion like Harvard does. I don't make $2.5 billion a year like Harvard does. You want to talk about suppression? Look at what is us fighting against Google and YouTube and the other social media giants. Please like, share, subscribe. But Sarah says, "Hi, Mike. Happy Sunday." Happy Sunday, Sarah. And she says, "I want to learn more about Elon's cousins being brought in as Afrikaner refugees." I'm joking about the cousin relationship, of course. I'm not familiar. I follow a lot of things in a given week. And over the last 2 decades, about 20 years now, I've been doing political commentary for those who don't know. And I follow about 6 hours a day. I follow the news on many different topics. Elon Musk and his relations or his connections to South Africa really isn't on the top of my list. I haven't paid attention. Now, if we're talking about H-1B visas, that I can talk about. That is something I've been covering since 2013 when I was running for Congress. And I think I understand why Elon Musk and many of the tech giants want it. It's cheap labor and cheap qualified labor, even though there's a 2-to-1 glut of Americans. For every one STEM job, science, technology, engineering, and math, for every one job, there are at least 2, and I think the most recent update said 6 Americans for every one tech job out there in science, technology, engineering, and math. But we're more expensive than going over to places like India, as an example, and getting their workforce through an H-1B visa. So that's why you see companies like Tesla, like almost any tech company, they want more H-1B visas. So that's been a problem. But as for Elon, and he's trying to bring in more people into America, I have no problem with legal migration. I really don't. As much as I don't like the H-1B visas, because that's bad for American economy, it's bad for American business and for American workers. And so I think there's an imbalance in the H-1B visas. I think many of the tech companies have been taking advantage of the loophole the H-1B visa creates. And it is a source, about 7% of those who get H-1B visas turn into illegal aliens. After their term, the visa is time limited. And after their visa expires, these individuals very often stay in America instead of going back to their home country. So about 7%. So it is a problem in itself on an economic as well as a national security and immigration level. But legal migration overall, I don't have a problem with. I don't mind immigration. I think people who go through the process, who want to be Americans, not in America. Like, I don't want people who are coming to America who are, for lack of a better, Laotian. I don't want Laotians in America. If you want to be a Laotian American, because you want to be an American, fantastic. But if you want to be a Laotian in America, I have a problem. Dearborn, Michigan is a great example of that where we have a large number of people from foreign countries who want to be foreigners in America under the rules of their home country, under the culture of their home country, but not assimilating and being part of America itself. And that destroys our society. It destroys our nation. It is hurting us. And it is a problem. It's one of the reasons why we have seen such an increase in race relation tensions. So if Elon Musk is following the laws as they exist, whether we like them or not, these are the laws. Until the laws are changed by Congress, because they can't be changed by a president, even though Obama did try that, the fact is the laws on immigration must be changed by Congress. Until Congress changes those laws, and I would be fine to see some of those changes. I would like to see that conversation. If Elon is following the law and he is bringing individuals into America who are not on an H-1B visa, but want to be in America to become Americans, I have no problem. Let him do it. Let it go. I have no problem with that. I don't care who he's bringing in. And if he's using his influence to help more people be able to do that, that's politics. That's a function of a bureaucratic governmental system. Every country has that. If you want to call it corruption, every country has corruption. Every country has corruption in terms of immigration. If that is the worst thing I have to worry about, a couple dozen people being brought into a country because of one political figure or quasi-political figure, and they're bringing in a dozen people, 100 people. We're talking, the immigration problem in America is 8 million illegal aliens. 100 people make no difference. 100 people who came in through a legal system, even if that was abused, 100 people coming in through a legal system and they want to become Americans, I have no problem with that. Not when we have 8 million illegal aliens. We know that there are 650,000 violent illegal aliens in America. That's my priority. That's my focus. So no, I don't know a lot about what's happening with Elon's cousins, but I hope you can understand why it's not my focus, why I haven't focused on it. And I haven't noticed anyone else in the political commentary arena, the pundits, I haven't seen them talking about it, which doesn't mean it's not an issue. It's just not something that has caught my attention at this time. But I thank you, Sarah, for bringing it up, and I will double check into it more. Grace says, Minnesota and the Somalians are another example. Yes, that's another example. Again, I don't care where you come from if you're coming to America to be American. If you're coming to be in America and you're Somali or you're Pakistani or you're Laotian, you're Canadian, I don't care where you come from. If you're coming here to live your culture, your nationality, your ethnicity in America, I have a problem. If you're coming to America to be an American and you're going through the legal system, I got no problem with you. That's fine. Come on in. That makes America grow and that makes America great. There is a non-subtle, this isn't a thin gray line. It is a big, huge wall of difference between the two. Massive. And Democrats often try to confuse and conflate the two. That's why they always say migrants, because they're including legal migration and illegal immigration. They always like to mix in illegal aliens with legal processes to confuse people, to try and gain more sympathy. And we know the reason why they're doing this, as detailed by Kamala Harris in Pennsylvania in October of 2024, when she talked to ABC News and she was interviewed. One of the few interviews that she did, she said, Democrats want open borders because they want to have a path to citizenship. They are building up a slave class dependent on Democrats to be able to be in America and to get benefits from Americans. And that's a slave class. That would ensure, if they had 8 million votes, if they legalize those individuals, allow them to vote in our elections with or without citizenship, because we've seen in California and New York several states, they have tried to allow illegal aliens to vote in our elections. And we know that several illegal aliens have been caught in 2020, 2022, 2024. We know that they are. We don't know how many, but we do know that some of these illegal aliens are being registered to vote, like in Washington state, where we knew at least 300 were reported publicly having been registered to vote, with the state of Washington saying that there were hundreds more that they knew were in the system but hadn't verified yet, and they never published the final number. I do find that interesting. I got to double check that. So they knew. They're building up a slave class dependent on Democrats. That's why they want that, and that's why I have a problem with illegal immigration. One of the many reasons. Besides the fact that illegal aliens hurt the system. They drain our economy. They increase inflation. And I know a lot of Democrats always like to tell people, oh, Mike, but illegal aliens, they're a net benefit. They actually bring in money. They help businesses grow. Then why is New York City, Boston, Chicago, Baltimore, L.A., Colorado, Austin, we can go through about a dozen of the major cities in America, almost every single one of them, Democrat-controlled, that are sanctuary cities, and they're all crumbling over the last 4, now 5 years. They've been crumbling. Their infrastructure is being destroyed because they have, in New York City, 200, it only took a city of over 8 million people, 200,000 illegal aliens, and New York City's infrastructure is being destroyed. 200,000 out of 8 million people living in New York City. Same thing's happening in Boston, Chicago, all the other cities I mentioned. If illegal aliens were such a boon, why are we losing money? Why is this destroying the infrastructure? Why are cities and states going bankrupt, trying to keep these illegal aliens in America? Why are Democrats fighting so hard for these individuals that are destroying the economies of our states and our cities? It's because they want to give them a chance to vote so that they will be dependent slaves, permanently attached through a political set of handcuffs to the Democratic Party. That's why they do this. It's not because they have compassion. They don't care about these people. They don't care if these people are well off or not. They want the vote. And that's why they are doing this. This is a long-term strategy. I'm always happy to hear anyone on the left who says, oh, Mike, you just don't understand. Because they always say, you don't understand. It's always the first thing they say. You don't understand. Of course I do. I've been doing this for 2 decades. Yes, I do. I talk to many of the members of Congress. I've talked to members of state legislatures at the local level, city level, mayors. Trust me, I've talked to many candidates of every single party, not just Republicans, but every single party, everyone who's in elected office. I've been doing this for 2 decades. Yeah, I do understand. I just don't agree with the left. I don't agree with Democrats. So let me go on. Grace says 8 million votes and 8 million dependents. That's exactly what I'm talking about. So I did want to bring up, and for those who are new to the channel, you are always welcome to do as Sarah did, to bring up an issue or a topic that I'm not presenting and ask questions about that. And I will try my very best to be able to answer your question, or at least explain why I can't answer your question, or get as close to answering it as I can. I'm always happy to hear your voices. Again, this is a conversation. It's not me lecturing to you. It's a conversation. You can always disagree with anything I say. And very often, many people on the left, the right, the center who watch this program, they know. They can say, Mike, I don't agree with you. Here's why. Don't tell me I'm old. Don't tell me I'm ugly. Don't tell me I don't understand, because I do. Tell me why you think I'm wrong. And we can have that conversation. And you will be treated with respect. As long as you are respectful, you will be treated with respect on this channel. And you can do a super chat, or you can do a Rumble rant, because it helps the channel. And I'll be even more happy to answer your questions. We always do that. But let me tell you, in terms of our format, we usually like to start with breaking news whenever possible, something that I think is relevant for the public, whether it's popular news or not That's entirely irrelevant. I don't care what's popular. I talk about what I think is relevant, what is important, especially if it isn't getting as much attention as we think it should, kind of like what we saw with Eden Alexander. The news media glossed past that. They didn't want you to know that potentially every single American, other than four that were taken hostage by Hamas, they're all dead. Hamas killed them all. The news media doesn't want to talk about that. They don't want you to think about that. But that's the reality. That's the reality. And that may affect policy. I know it does for me, but it may affect the way you vote. It may affect the way American politics will move forward. And I think it should. We can disagree with that if you want, or you may agree with me. But at least let's have the conversation. I believe you are intelligent enough to have the conversation. Because unlike Democrats, I believe you have agency. You're not a checkbox. You're not just some demographic. You're not the skin color, your sex, your gender, your sexual preference. You are a human being. So when given information, you can make a decision. And I look forward to that. Okay, let me move on. So, and by the way, so we start with the breaking news. We go into international news. We normally take a break. That's usually around the 2.5 hour mark. And then we come back and we talk about domestic. That's generally the loose format. Plus your questions, SuperChats, RumbleRants in between. Let me see here. So I wanted to also go into, obviously, and I think a lot of people have heard about this within the last 24 hours. People are hearing more and more about it today. Mostly this morning, we've heard there is a ceasefire that is now in effect over in India and Pakistan. This has been something that has been brewing, and over the last 4 days, last month, 26 Indians were killed in Pakistan, in Kashmir. And that set off a series of dominoes of aggravation and anger and dislike between Pakistan, the government of Pakistan, and the government of India, and many of the people as well. Last week, we went through this in some detail, talking about the escalation and the fact that this would absolutely lead to a shooting war. In fact, I believe last week I told everyone that we would see fighting on Monday, and there was. And we've seen fighting for 4 days in a row. And that fighting escalated, went from shooting to missiles and bombs and jets, over 100 jets fighting in the air, dogfights going on, missile attacks. Over 70 people have died. Over 70 people. And that's sad. And that's not counting the destruction of property, buildings, infrastructure, economy. We haven't even talked about that. Definitely in the tens of millions of dollars at this point. But there's been a ceasefire, which is great because at the pace of the increase of violence, of retaliation, of tit-for-tat military actions that were going between Pakistan and India, it was just escalating and escalating, and both sides were talking about nuclear weapons. They were talking about using nuclear firepower. India and Pakistan are nuclear powers, and they hate each other. They have hated each other since they broke away, since India and Pakistan broke away from the United Kingdom. They have almost instantly hated each other, and they broke apart. They used to be one nation, they broke into two, Pakistan and India. And a lot of this has to do with religion. Pakistan is Muslim overall, overwhelmingly, and we know India is Hindu. They don't like each other in terms of the religious aspects, and the politics reflect that as well. So we have a lot of problems there. And as I detailed quite a bit last week, this isn't simply a foreign war that we can ignore. It's not, to be fair, it's not like Hamas in Gaza. It's not like the Ukraine, which largely the world ignored, except in the Ukraine, one of the consequences was a food crisis, which we have been in since 2022. there's 30% less food, some would say even 40% less food in the world today than there was in 2019. And that's because of the Ukraine-Russia war. That's one of the consequences that has come about, and that's why there's more food inflation. And no matter what Trump tries to do, no matter what Biden tried to do, as long as that war continues, the cost of food will be elevated versus, I use the standard of 2019. And even taking into account inflation from 2019 levels, the cost of food is significantly higher because the war. There's less food in the world, and people are starving because of it. That's aggravated even further by the Houthis, another terrorist group in the Red Sea out of Yemen, that are delaying food being delivered through the Red Sea to reach Africa and Southeast Asia. And people are dying because the Houthis, they don't like America, they don't like Israel, they don't like the allies of Israel and America, and they don't care that people are starving around the world because we're trying to ship food to them. They don't care. And that's really sad. And again, but that's why they're terrorists. That's why the Houthis are terrorists. So we talked about a bunch of this last week. Now we're talking about the peace. And one of the things I thought that was very interesting about this piece, and it's being reported, I believe it's, is it in this story? Oh, come on, stop. I had a highlight up here. People were running the shells. No, I think it's there it is, the BBC. The BBC pointed out that the reason why the ceasefire, which is shaky at best, India and Pakistan are both blaming each other for breaking the ceasefire. They're both saying that neither side is living up to the ceasefire, and probably both of them are right. Both sides are probably still having minor incursions, pushing to see who can get a little bit more leverage. Because once you start fighting nation versus nation, well, it's about who owns how much land, who has the greater amount of leverage. We see this in the Ukraine and Russia. Why is Russia not moving forward quickly into ceasefire talks, into talking about a peace deal? Because they have the advantage, because Russia is winning. They've gained the territory and they're trying to gain more. And the pressure is on Ukraine. Ukraine wants a ceasefire because they're losing. And the longer that it takes, the more that they lose. And that's going to make it much more difficult for them to negotiate for a ceasefire. They're going to have to give up more and more to get a ceasefire, to get a peace deal. They know that. Which is why Zelensky is trying to constantly say, well, he has to have absolute victory. He can't get that. It's never going to happen. But he's trying to convince his people to have the moral strength to hold on so that he can get to a peace deal and not lose as much as Russia is trying to make him lose. So we see this often. And that's why whenever there's a ceasefire, right before the ceasefire, there's normally, especially, or a peace, whenever there's a peace that's going to be declared or a ceasefire, you normally see that military actions increase. The number of people who die, who are injured, actually increase. The number of conflicts and encounters increase just before the ceasefire and a little bit into the ceasefire, because everything doesn't stop on the dime, very rarely. It almost never stops. All the fighting just doesn't stop. Even in a world as instantaneous as the one we have now, things don't just stop on a dime. And so you will see some more continued fighting even after the deadline hits. Just happens. That's the nature of warfare. And it's because people are trying to grab that extra inch of land, which gives them that extra bit of leverage in any ceasefire talks, any peace deals. They have that much more leverage to use to their advantage. You may not like that. That is the fact. That is the reality. That's military doctrine. That is military political tactics. It's just a fact. Doesn't matter if people like it. Doesn't matter if anyone thinks it's fair or not. Doesn't matter if that's just a bad way of doing things. That's just what happens. It's just a reality. And there's no way around it. Sadly, it's just the way of the world. That's how peace deal ceasefires always take place. So I'm not saying that either side is good. This is something I expect both sides are doing this and blaming each other for this, which actually kind of works well because since they're both actively breaking the ceasefire in minor engagements, then it kind of balances itself. Neither side feels like they're losing, that they're losing their leverage or their advantage or their status quo. And so since they're both losing about the same, they haven't gained anything or lost anything that they didn't have before the ceasefire, there's no real impetus to force them to go back. I mean, one of the things it's like, again, going back to Russia, Ukraine. Ukraine keeps trying to fight. They need to win. They keep fighting for the win so that they can take back some of the advantage that Russia has. And Russia is willing to fight because they want to press the advantage that they have. And that makes it very difficult to get them to sit down and talk about a peace deal because of that constant, Ukraine trying to change the momentum, to regain some of its land, to have more leverage, and Russia saying, we have the advantage, press the advantage. So that's a little bit about that. But as I said, in the Ukraine, in talking about this from the BBC, it's interesting that the countries that were most critical, the reason why there is a ceasefire deal, even tenuous, that exists right now, last week we thought and we said the United Kingdom had to be at the forefront, that the United Kingdom had to lead the world in the discussions in talking with India and Pakistan because of its past relationship. Whether you like that relationship or not doesn't matter. But because they have so many cultural and political ties between India and Pakistan and the United Kingdom, I felt that they were essential and have been essential in the past in any path towards a ceasefire or a peace deal. And sadly, Keir Starmer isn't capable of doing that. He is not the leader that the United Kingdom needs to enable to make nations feel like they should pay attention. That's why Russia hasn't paid attention to anything that Keir Starmer or the EU have said. They're weak. They're not significant. They're not important. And we have seen that over and over again in negotiations with Russia and Ukraine. No one's taking them seriously. So Keir Starmer isn't the leader that the United Kingdom needs to try and help resolve this. But America, while I knew we would be involved because this is more of an economic issue for us, it's about stopping refugees from entering into America, which undoubtedly would be coming in the thousands, if not tens of thousands, if the conflict were allowed to continue. There would be tens of thousands of Pakistanis and Indians trying to enter the United States for asylum. And that would hurt America even more, given the last 4 years, what we've been dealing with. But it turns out that according to the Brookings Institute and according to several international sources, it's the United States. The United States, the United Kingdom, and Saudi Arabia. And that's the one that surprises me. I knew the United States would be involved. Donald Trump, Marco Rubio would be involved in, and they already have reached out to India, to Pakistan, to the leaders and the militaries, trying to calm them down. We saw that even prior to last week. They've been trying to resolve this situation before it could get over the top. Although they weren't rushing forward to say, hey, America says don't do it. There were some tweets. There were some general statements, but not in-depth negotiations. The Trump administration taking a largely hands-off approach, as detailed by Vice President J.D. Vance, that we were taking a mostly wait and see type of approach. Would this be a large conflict like everyone feared it would be? Was the potential for escalation to nuclear firearms, was that realistic, or would this remain a conventional weapons conflict? Because if it's conventional weapons, well, then you only have to deal with refugees, and that won't be as large as if it were nuclear weapons. You're not dealing with the same thing. You don't have to worry about the fallout affecting not just India and Pakistan, but we're talking about the Middle East and Southeast Asia. That would be very significant. So everyone was very concerned. In fact, about 30 countries, as being reported by the BBC and other international news agencies, it wasn't just the United States, the United Kingdom, and Saudi Arabia, but 30 countries were involved because, as we detailed last week, this conflict could affect food, it could affect populations, it can affect technology, it would absolutely affect the GDP of multiple nations all across the world. This is a global conflict. If India and Pakistan fight, especially if it's nuclear, it is a global incident, and it affects everyone. And not just like with Ukraine, where there's food, there's less food, but there's still food in the world. No, we're talking about major impact to the world's economies, in terms of the world's population, in terms of the infrastructure of countries all across Europe, all across the United Kingdom, North America, and Southeast Asia. Absolutely. So they all came together to deal with that. And I don't think a lot of people are going to see that Donald Trump is getting, and also Marco Rubio, are getting a lot of praise internationally. You're not going to hear that in the United States. That it was because of the relationships between Modi and, which is the Prime Minister of India, and the Prime Minister of Pakistan, and Donald Trump, the capabilities of Marco Rubio, in addition to the support directly from Saudi Arabia and the United Kingdom, this would never happen. In fact, if it were not for that, this would not have gone through. The United Kingdom was not capable of being able to do this. Some other diplomats were talking about that. Last time, Pompeo claimed that the United States averted nuclear war. Last time there was a conflict a little over 6 years ago. While they likely exaggerated, so they're downplaying what we did in the past, they may have played the primary diplomatic role. That's the United States, may have played the primary diplomatic role, perhaps amplifying Delhi's position in Islamabad. This is important to understand. That as much as we are told, Orange Man bad, as much as we are told, the cabinet, Trump's cabinet is MAGA and America first, and that's evil, and it's racist, and it's repressive, if it weren't for that very same Trump administration, if it weren't for individuals like Marco Rubio, you would be looking at a regional conflict no one else could stop. Without the United States, Saudi Arabia and the United Kingdom would not be enough in terms of economics, in terms of military, in terms of clout. They could not have stopped this. Only the United States. So the next time you hear someone say, America's evil, America's a horrible country, America bad, Orange Man bad, MAGA is bad, remind these people, who's fighting to make the world better? Matter of fact, let me do this on the big screen, and then I'm going to go to some of the comments, so bear with me. But the next time you hear someone say, oh, America's so evil, so bad, so terrible, remind them, who's getting Russia to even consider having ceasefire talks? America, under Donald Trump. Because it didn't happen under Biden, and Kamala Harris was not a factor. In fact, she made everything worse. It wasn't the UN, not the UK, not the United Kingdom. It wasn't the European Union. It wasn't France or Germany. It wasn't Brazil. Lots of countries, in fact, every country tried to get Russia and Ukraine to come and talk. to even consider having a ceasefire, let alone a peace talk. And no one could get it done for years until Donald Trump showed up. And now we're seeing it happen. Oh yeah, that's MAGA being so evil, so terrible, that we're increasing the amount of global stability, we're increasing the amount of peace potentially peace in the world. Because we have a strong leader with a focus. Whether you like that or not, doesn't matter. The world respects that, and it gets things done. Same thing happening in the Middle East, same thing now with India and Pakistan, the Near East nations. That's just a fact. China isn't talking about taking over Taiwan anymore. They were nonstop saying that to the Biden-Harris administration. Every time that Kamala Harris went over to South Korea, they reinforced the fact that there was going to be a war, that China was going to go into Taiwan and North Korea was going to go into South Korea. And Kamala Harris only made things worse. There was less confidence in the United States under the Biden-Harris administration, or when Harris was running for president by herself. Less confidence. Now there's more. So you can say Orange Man bad all day long. The fact is, Orange Man bad is making the world more stable, more peaceful, ending more wars than at any time in the last 4 years. That's just a fact. That's just the reality. You may not like it. The news media doesn't want to say it in that way, but when you look at the analysis of all the news, that's the reality. That's the truth of the matter. Let me go over to the comments. And of course, if you disagree, I'm happy to hear your voice. I'm happy to see your chat. Go ahead, super chat or comment, and I'll be happy to answer you. So, Grace says, you had a great analysis of the Pakistan-Indian conflict last week, and I do recommend people check it out. It was a live stream. It's our season 7, episode 17, Sunday live stream. Please check it out. Yes, we've been doing this for 8 years. Yes, I have. And so we do roughly about 50 shows every year, 50 times a week, 50 times a year. We do this program besides all the other content and event coverages that we do. So do check it out. Grace goes on to say, grain prices shot up thanks to the Ukraine-Russia war. That's true. I'm not sure what, if any, the economic ramifications will be from India and Pakistan. They would be enormous because you're not just talking about food. Again, you're talking about populations moving and you're talking about technology. So all of that is involved. You have, if the conflict reignites, if it escalates, even if it's not nuclear, if it's just conventional weapons, tanks and soldiers and bullets, you're still looking at large thousands of people will move, and they're going to be moving to Southeast Asia, but they're predominantly going to be going towards the United Kingdom, into Europe, and the United States, maybe Canada, because there is a cultural similarity for a large number of those individuals. And also a lot more religious freedom in those regions. If you're going to Europe, United Kingdom, America, Canada, you tend to have more religious freedom than you would if you went to pretty much anywhere in South America. Absolutely more than what you're seeing in Africa. I mean, try and go to the Sudan with religious freedom. I dare you. You're not going to get it. Even most of Southeast Asia, Middle East, you're not getting religious freedom there. So they're going to, one, besides the language, besides the fact that they culturally are very close to the United Kingdom, English rule, they're also going to, that would make it naturally more likely that you're going to see people go to the United Kingdom or to the United States, possibly Canada, theoretically even to Australia. Unlikely, it's a larger, still a far trip. It's easier to get to America or Canada or the United Kingdom. But you're going to see that movement. And that means that's when that population moves, that's businesses that are moving, that's incomes that are moving, That is spending patterns that are changing. Infrastructure is going to be affected. So it's more devastating than what we're seeing in the United Kingdom, especially since we're talking about India is the largest population on the planet, about 1.2 billion people. So we're talking about when they start moving, they're not moving. The entire population of the Ukraine could be relocating from an India-Pakistan war into the rest of the world. Literally, the whole entire population of the Ukraine could be the same number of people from an India-Pakistan war going into these foreign countries. You're talking substantial changes. So that's why it would be far more economically impactful. Let's see. Dow says, "Hello, Dow. By the way, Grace and to Sarah and to Dow and to everyone who's watching, welcome. Thank you for your comments." Dow says, "We would need to help Pakistan and India to settle this because we have economic ties to both countries," which is true. "Some deals newly minted that could adversely affect their investments in our domestic industry." Well, they're very deeply tied, and that's part of the H-1B visas, which are going to Pakistanis and to Indians to come into America. We have a lot of our technology infrastructure tied to those two nations. Thank you, Obama. We've outsourced a lot of that, even though we do have, again, I believe the number is 6-1. We have 6 people in STEM, qualified degrees in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, in the United States. But they're not getting the experience. They don't have the jobs. We're instead seeing those tech companies like Amazon, like Tesla, like Bezos, all of them. They're actually going and hiring people from Pakistan and India. So it would have a massive impact on us and them. That's true. Let's see. Dow goes on to say, "The adverse effect on curbing their investments to negotiate around tariffs could sabotage the current administration's economic goals." Well, I'm glad you brought up the tariffs. I do believe that part of the conversation that went on between Donald Trump and the leaders of India and Pakistan, part of the conversation, how can I say this? The United States was there to talk about the economic impact, to talk about the refugee status, to talk about global food. And I think there's a lot of weight that President Trump can put on there, and everyone takes him seriously. The world leaders may not, well, they don't like Donald Trump. They don't like how he works, but they do take him seriously. They do fear him, and they do understand that he is willing to do something that is unpopular because he thinks it's the best thing to do, especially considering now Donald Trump cannot run again. He's term limited out. So he only has until 2028. And in particular, he has the midterm to worry about, where historically at least one, either the House and or the Senate, will flip against him. They'll go from Republican control to Democrat control. That's historically what happens. Usually it's the House. The House will probably switch and have a slight majority for the Democrats in 2026. That's historically what you would expect. That means that Trump, at this moment, is at his most aggressive. The first year and a half is the most aggressive policies we're going to be seeing from the Trump-Vance administration, because he's got to get it all done before the 2026 midterm elections. He's got to put everything in place and have the bureaucracy churning on these policies, because it's very difficult for the government to stop doing anything that it starts doing. As an example, Trump may be defunding the Department of Education. It's not gone. The Department of Education continues to exist. U.S. aid, which was giving so much of America's money, taxpayer money, to criminals around the world. We know this. This is a fact that they were funding criminals and fraudulent organizations and terrorists. We know this for a fact. It was a front very often for the CIA and their quasi-political activities around the world. Everyone recognized that. That is a reality and a truth. And even in that department, which has been scaled down to basically zero, 83% of all of its operations have been eliminated. It still exists. See, Congress has to remove it. Congress has to close it down permanently. It takes an act of Congress to get rid of the Department of Education, just like it took an act of Congress to create the Department of Education. We can't get rid of those things. Now, managing them is the purview of the executive branch, of the president. That's true. And he can say, oh, well, zero funding for that organization. He could take the ATF and he could give it zero money, no money whatsoever, or change its mission, its stated goals, its focus to anything that he wants it to be. He is the president. He can manage it in that manner, which is what we're seeing with USAID, what we've seen with the Department of Education. But that can be reversed by the next president. That can be reversed by an act of Congress. So it's not permanent. And that makes it, and the world knows that's why Trump is moving as much as he is, because nothing has been permanent yet. Congress hasn't codified what the Trump administration has been doing, mostly by executive order. And for those who have been following this channel for a long time, I don't like the executive orders. Mind you, this isn't the most executive orders we have ever seen. Trump is basically in line to be about average for the number of executive orders we have seen from most modern presidents. When I say modern, I say within the last 50, 100 years. Most presidents have been, in the last 50 years, most of the presidents have been making about as many executive orders as Donald Trump has. Anyone who tells you different is lying to you. That's just not the truth. And you know who had the most executive orders in 1 year? FDR. You know who had the most executive orders in his presidency? FDR. And I believe it was Coolidge, I believe, another Democrat, who had the second most. So Trump is right in line. And you're looking at, I believe it was 1,800 in 1 year for FDR, 3,700 executive orders throughout his presidency under FDR. I think it was Coolidge, another Democrat, had, I believe it was 1,700 for his time in office. So gives you an idea of the difference. And Trump, if he were to maintain the pace he has right now, he'd be at about 450, 500, which is just slightly above the average of modern presidents in the last 30, 40 years. You're looking at an average of about 300 to 400. So Trump would be just slightly above the norm, but not significant. Sorry, I'm getting sidetracked, but I'm trying to make sure you get all the information. This is a lot of stuff no one's talked to you about. The news media doesn't think you're smart enough. They don't think you're an adult. They don't want to tell you these little details that are important. They want you to hear, Orange Man, bad. Everything is falling apart. He's abusing the executive orders. No, he's not. Not even close. And we have the history, we have the records to say that. Now, do I want him to use as many executive orders as he has? Absolutely not. But again, that's another question. But the story you're getting from the mainstream news media, because they have 30 seconds to try and tell you everything I'm taking half an hour to tell you. And the fact is, they're not giving you as many details. They're skimming through this and they're changing the context. That's sad. And that's why it's so important to know more, because they don't trust you. They don't trust that you're going to vote the way they want you to if you know details, because the details matter. So going back to India and Pakistan, they know that Trump, if he makes, at this point, like with the tariffs, whether you like the tariffs or not, whether you like the way they were implemented or not, doesn't matter. Everyone knows that Trump is serious and he is willing to do this, and he is willing to do this for an extended period of time. And India and Pakistan, like most of the world, rely absolutely on the United States, not just because of our military, but also because of our economy. And if the same kind of tactics in terms of the economy, in terms of tariffs, were done to India that were done to China, we're talking like 145% tariff, India would collapse. It would destroy their economy. Same thing with Pakistan. So I am sure part of the conversation to get India and Pakistan to try to calm down, to try and have this ceasefire, I'm sure the threat of tariffs of enormous size that would devastate their economy, and a promise that refugees trying to leave Pakistan and India for the United States would not be accepted, which is part of the power of the presidency. It already exists. We've seen this done by President Carter when it came to Iran. The United States, a president can block any nation's refugees from coming to the United States. That is legal. It is something that has been done before by presidents, in particular Democrats. It's been done. This is well within the power. And I am sure the conversation was either you calm down, no nukes, absolutely no nukes, and calm down, try and have a ceasefire, have a conversation, or the United States will tariff the hell out of both of you, and none of your people will be able to come to our country. And there's nowhere else for them to go. The United Kingdom can't handle it. Europe can't handle it. You're not going to Africa. You're not going to South America. You're not going to go to Central America. You can't, and none of the Southeast Asian countries can handle you. You want to go to China? I dare you. Have fun. Have fun with that. You're not going to Russia? Have fun with that. The answer is you have to come to the United States, and we won't let you in. And I think that's why the United States led in the negotiations, and that's why I think the negotiations will stick. That's why they're going to make this ceasefire work as long as it can, because the United States has the big stick, and we have someone who is willing to use it. I hope that makes sense to everyone. I don't know that everyone will agree with that, but I'm trying to give you a context of understanding of what's happening here, and so you understand how important it is, regardless of what country you are in the world. This is how it's going to affect every country. It's economic, it's social, and it is potentially, in the case of nuclear fallout, it is environmental. This is the most serious thing facing us at this moment. And more important than Ukraine, Russia. Absolutely. More important than Hamas, Israel. Far more important. Absolutely. More important than Haiti. Absolutely. Without a question. This is the preeminent issue of the world. And I think Trump and Rubio, as per international news media, they're handling it. We're lucky we have them, because if it weren't for them, no one else in the world could stand up and take their place. Just couldn't happen. Let me see. Let me double check. I think there's another comment or two here. Dow says, in the absence of Congress doing its job properly and effectively, the offices of the executive branch feel the need to function this way because those in previous Congress made it this way by abdicating their responsibilities and offloading them to the White House. Well, yeah, Congress has been giving more and more power to the president, and the president has been abusing that power. But most of the things that the Trump administration has done are not powers given recently. These are powers that the president has had since the inception of the presidency. Many of them are going back to some of our earliest treaties, some of the earliest, the Constitution itself, the amendments. A lot of this is powers that the president has had for over 100 years, in some cases 200 years. So it's not recent powers, but yes, recently we have seen, like Obama saying 20 times to the American people that he can't make immigration law, that he couldn't just make a path to citizenship, and then after telling the American people as a constitutional scholar and also as a president that he couldn't do it, he then turned around in 2012, 2014, 2012. He turned around and said, oh, by the way, Congress is now giving me the power to do DACA, something that is unconstitutional. It should be struck down. Should have been struck down a long time ago because it is unconstitutional. It is a class of people. It is a power that Congress has, not the presidency. That's not something that I say. That's something that constitutional college professor Barack Obama, that's what he said. Those were his words. President doesn't have this power. It should have been struck down. But, again, that's a different thing. Yes, I remember things on this channel that most people forget. I remember the conversations that Barack Obama had. I remember his background as a college professor teaching constitutional law. I remember a lot of the things that the news media wants you to forget. Because if you forget, you won't allow that to change the way you vote going forward. You won't remember who's at fault or how did we get to where we are today. And that's important. They'll tell you that he's using more executive orders than anyone ever before. That's a lie. He's usurping the power of the presidency. That's a lie. He's doing things that no one's ever done before. That's a lie. You may not like the things he does. I'm not saying that you have to like them, but he hasn't been abusing the power of the presidency. He hasn't. You don't have to like what he's done, but it's not abusive. In fact, it's what other presidents have done. There is precedent for this. He is following the rules and the laws. The thing is, he's enforcing the law, and everyone else forgot to do that. Everyone else stopped. That's how corrupt our system has become. We stopped enforcing the law. That's Republicans and Democrats alike. I'll say that President Bush, G.W. Bush, we're talking Obama, we're talking Clinton, we're definitely talking Biden. Yeah, there's been a lot of corruption, a lot of failure to live up to the enforcement responsibilities of the executive branch. That's just the reality. And now we have someone who is doing their job, and that's why so many political organizations are freaking out. Because when they're held accountable, they can't survive. They lose their power. But that's my point of view. If anyone disagrees, I'm perfectly happy to hear that. Okay, let's keep going. So, I wanted to move on to the Ukraine. Wow, it's already been an hour and 15 minutes. We're doing great, folks. By the way, if you made it this far, like, share, subscribe, please. So we talked a little bit about the Ukraine already. And we've been talking about Russia. And we also mentioned their ceasefire. Now, Putin was the one who initiated the most recent hint at having a ceasefire. Initially, that came from Putin. He said, hey, you know what? I'm willing to go and have a ceasefire. Let's talk about it. Let's have that conversation. To which the Ukraine said, with the United States pushing Zelensky, pushing the Ukraine, and saying, yeah, do it. And so they did. And they said, okay, but we want conditions. We want certain conditions. We want there to be an end to the fighting. And most importantly, those conditions that were being asked for by the Ukraine to get Russia to sit down and talk about a ceasefire, those conditions came from Keir Starmer and Emmanuel Macron, the European Union. And you can see them pictured right here. The man in the middle is Keir Starmer. If he looks like he's upset, he is. The other man who looks also very displeased, very disturbed, that's Emmanuel Macron, the president of France. And he has strong standing in the European Union. These are the people who are backing up Zelensky, the man on the far left, the shortest one there. Zelensky is the president of Ukraine. And he's saying, no, okay, Russia has to stop fighting to even have this conversation. Russia has to have several conditions that they have to meet to be able to have a ceasefire discussion with the Ukraine. But the Ukraine is willing. Ukraine's saying, we'll have the conversation. We are absolutely 100% in on ceasefire talks. But Europe and the United Kingdom, they've got our back, and they're saying, but Russia, you've got to have conditions. You've got to stop fighting first. You've got to be able to have a ceasefire so that we can negotiate further talks. And Russia's laughing in their face. This is why they're upset. This is why they look so disturbed. Because Russia just laughed in their face. Russia said, no, you're out of your mind. Russia said, you're joking, right? Look, we'll have direct talks. I'll talk directly with the Ukraine. Zelensky will sit down with Putin, and we'll talk about possibly a ceasefire. We'll talk about ending the war. But if you're going to tell me, we got to get back all the land, you're out of your mind. Not going to happen. Never going to happen. We got to give back everything that we won since 2014. Russia says, never going to happen. You're not serious. You're not being serious. I don't have to listen to you. And they say, well, and you have to stop fighting. And Russia won't do it. See, here it is. Andrei Yermak, cleaner in a Telegram post, Putin's suggestion that Ukraine and Russian delegations could meet on Thursday, this Thursday, May 15th. This is what Russia has offered, that they will have the negotiations starting May 15th. It is immediate, which is great news. Except, first a 30-day ceasefire, then everything else. That's what he wants. He wants to negotiate for a 30-day ceasefire, and then they can use those 30 days to talk about actual peace. Leaders of Britain, France, Germany, and Poland made a phone call to Donald Trump. Say, hey, Trump, will you back us up? Because we're going to tell Putin that there are conditions. And he won't listen unless the United States is there. He doesn't care. He doesn't care about Britain or France or Germany or Poland. He doesn't care about the EU. He doesn't value them. They have been the guys who have been trying to start negotiations to even get Putin to pay attention to the concept of ceasefire for 3 years. And he's ignored every single one of them. They've all had elections. Their governments have all changed. Their policies and their focus have changed. They've become more militarized. They're building up their military, and Russia doesn't care. And even under Biden, Russia didn't care. Under Trump, he does. Same reason why India and Pakistan care. For the same reasons. A focused leader who's willing to take action, even if it's unpopular, because he thinks it's the right thing. It's in the best direction. So they knew it. And they already know. They've already told Zelensky they can't do anything without the United States. Without Donald Trump, they can't do anything. But they tried. They tried to do something without the United States. And Putin laughed in their face. The world got to see them get embarrassed again. It's kind of sad. Hey, Mike Has Bad Knees is with us. Hey, Mike. And he says they cured their disappointment with some with illicit drugs, allegedly. I wouldn't be surprised by that. But, I'm not bringing this up to be a negative here. But I want people to have a realistic impression. Because again, this is now from, and by the way, almost every single source that I use are almost all internationally credible left-leaning sources. You're not going to find, you may find one or two articles out of the entire 5-hour show that are center-right, and everything else is left-leaning, if not far left. Just so you know, these are internationally credible sources. And as an example, this is from The Economist. Europe's ceasefire ultimatum to Vladimir Putin falters at first test. Again, he doesn't care. So whether you like Orange Man bad or not, in fact, especially if you don't like Orange Man bad, you have to come at him, or we should be looking at our politics, not trying to break Donald Trump or MAGA. Maybe you want to suppress it. Maybe you don't agree with it. Fine. Change the laws. Take action. Fantastic. Legal action. Get Congress to move forward. Fantastic. Get the American public behind you by telling the truth, but don't cut off the legs of Donald Trump. I say this now because we have entered into a very critical part of the world. They know that Donald Trump is trying to do everything he can before 2026. As these conflicts are happening, they know that if they do something beyond the pale before the midterm elections, before 2027, that Donald Trump will instantly, can instantly react. But if they do it after that, if Donald Trump's legs are cut out from beneath him, if he no longer has the support of Congress, if he no longer has the support of the Senate, if the American people turn against him, and he turns into a lame duck president, which is quite possible to happen in 2027, as we approach the 2028 election, it is possible Donald Trump could turn into a lame duck president, which could be stifling to his capability to negotiate with the rest of the world. If the media is capable of doing what they're doing now, what they're attempting to do, they want to cut out his legs. His legs are the only thing keeping more peace in the world than not. It is a perspective most people have not discussed, have not considered, and the mainstream media doesn't want you to think about. It's one thing to take legislative action through Congress to change the laws, because Trump is enforcing existing law. You want illegal aliens to be treated differently? Change the law. Trump's only enforcing the law that exists. You want sanctuary cities to get federal funding? You want sanctuary states to get federal funding? Change the laws, because Trump's only following the law. You may not like the way he follows it, but that is the law. That is the way he is doing it. Change the law. But don't take out his legs from beneath him, because the world is relying on his strength and focus to be able to maintain the peace that Biden never provided. It's a way of looking at this that I don't think anyone's ever had the honest opportunity to tell the American people. This is important. Okay. And by the way, again, if you disagree, I am happy to hear people who say, Mike, you just don't understand. Tell me how I don't understand. I'm giving you all the evidence I can find to provide you the basis on which I make my decisions. I'm trying to give you all the evidence so that you can look at it and go, I get how you get there. Here are the facts, not my feelings. Here are the facts that exist that lead me to this conclusion, which has nothing to do with me being a conservative, with me being a Republican, has nothing to do with that. It has, here are the facts, this is where the dominoes lead. You knock over the dominoes, and this is where they're going. Whether you like it or not, whether it lines up with your political or my political ideology or not, doesn't matter. This is what we're seeing. And then you can make decisions based on that. Because I believe you're an adult. The mainstream news media doesn't. So looking at this, we know that the U.S., China, and again, while we see everything happening in India, while we see that Russia is starting to take some actions to negotiate peace, as we see that there is a strong economic backlash against China, and as we said 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, we were talking about this, China cannot survive long term with the tariffs as they are. America can. America can outwait and outlast China. The American people's feelings about it, totally different. We as a nation can absolutely survive the 145% tariffs, 160% tariffs from China. Absolutely. We have to change a lot of our businesses. We have to change our supply chains. We would need more U.S.-based manufacturing, which is the whole point of tariffs, to create that American industry, especially in areas of national defense, of medicine. We need more U.S.-based creation and manufacturing of these kinds of essential items. I've said this before. I know my friend Larry Sharp was talking about it recently. He said, oh, well, it doesn't matter who's making a toy. You got Yu-Gi-Oh cards? I don't care where they come from in the world. No one cares. No one cares. You got a bobblehead toy? No one cares where it's being made. That's not important. Who cares? Where are the antibiotics that are necessary for many people to survive, to be healthy in America? Where are they being made? As our food, like rice and milk, is that being tainted with lead, or is it okay to eat? Because we know, in recent history, China shipping over milk and rice had lead in it. It was not good for us. Well, why are we doing this? That's a danger to our people. We have rice. We have, not a lot, but we have some rice here. We have milk here, absolutely. And we have partners that aren't China that have better conditions. Let's use all of that. Let's manufacture what we can here in the United States and make deals with countries that like us. China doesn't like us. Why are we giving them our food that they may and have in the past poisoned or tainted, which hurts America? Why are we letting them make microchips and other software that goes into our security? Why are we doing that? Our enemy. Why are we asking them to make our weapons, to make our defenses and our absolute necessary medications and food? Why are we letting them touch any of that? That is not smart for any nation. So yes, we can survive a 145% tariff from China far longer than China can. And we should. But we are in talks right now because China, as we told you, 3 weeks ago, when the mainstream news media was telling you that the economy was going to be destroyed. We're going into a depression. You're going to lose everything. Your 401k is going to go to zero. You'll never have any money left. America has ended. That's what they were saying about, 3 weeks ago in April. They were telling you that Trump has destroyed everything. You sell it all because you'll never get any of it back. And we told you on this channel, as from my experience as a stockbroker, my experience in dealing with crashes in the market over and over again, don't fall victim to the feeling, to the fear and the fear mongering that is only there to protect and help political organizations. This wasn't about you. This was about their political power. And they wanted to punish you. And they wanted to make you feel bad so that you'd be angry at Trump and Republicans and MAGA and vote against them to give Democrats power. That's the whole thing. They wanted you to lose your life savings so that you would say, oh, the Republicans cost me my money. No, it was the fear-mongering from Democrats and the left-leaning news media that told you you're going to go into a depression. You were trying to sell everything so that you could save what you had. But if you weren't being pushed by the fear, if you weren't being pushed by the emotion, you wouldn't have sold everything. Yes, your value of your investments may drop, but then again, they drop and they raise every single day. You wouldn't have sold. And then you would have seen the recovery, as many, many millions of people have seen since that time. Same thing's happening now with China. They're in conversations. American business will recover. Some new businesses will be started in America. More manufacturing will happen here. America will become more self-sufficient. It is a process that will take 5 to 10 years. It is not an overnight solution. It is not something that's going to happen next week. There is going to continue to be volatility. There will be more spats with China and other nations in between. But the foundation of the idea is solid. It's not going to feel great every time. There are going to be bumps in the road. It's going to be scary for some people. Inconvenient for a lot of people. The long-term effect is the best benefit to the United States. And rather than trying to constantly coddle you, which we have seen from the left on a regular basis, Donald Trump's treating you like an adult. You're going to feel some pain. It's not going to be perfect. 5 years, 10 years, it'll be better. Your life will improve. Definitely by 5 to 10 years, we're going to see a lot of improvements for America. We will become more self-sufficient. Because right now, we're not. I mean, think of it from the microcosm. How many commercials have you seen just today telling you and your mom that, okay, you don't have to, to every mom out there, they're saying, don't cook dinner, use DoorDash, use chef whatever or other. Have some chef-prepared meal dropped off, ready to eat. All you got to do is put it in the microwave. It's Mother's Day. You don't want to cook. You want to get someone else to cook for you. So you're not self-sufficient. You're dependent. Oh, don't go out to the store and actually buy food. Use DoorDash. They'll go to the store for you, and they'll bring the groceries to you. So you're no longer self-sufficient. You're a dependent. We keep seeing these things over and over again. And Trump's saying, why? No wonder our kids are failing, that they are physically weak. Literally, they are physically weak. The kids today in their 20s cannot physically keep up. What I did in my 20s, these kids today cannot do in their 20s. They are not physically capable of doing it. They don't have the mental will to do it. The standards have been dropping physically. Why? Because our kids can't. Because they have become subordinate. They don't do anything. I'm not going to go to the store. I'm going to get someone to drop the food off for me. The convenience. Yes, you're a slave. You're dependent on others. And that same kind of ideology of dependence on someone to go to the store to get you a pack of eggs, the same dependence on someone else to cook your food, is the same dependence of a nation on another nation. That's the dependence of the United States on China. It's the same thing. And if DoorDash or whatever company, doesn't matter, doesn't go, Uber, doesn't go and get your food, you're going to starve because you don't know where the store is. And you can't carry the food back from the store to your home. If someone doesn't cook the meal for you, if you don't have one of those ready-to-eat meals that are being made by whatever company, doesn't matter, I don't care what the chef is they call themselves, if they don't provide you with a food that you just have to heat up, you don't know how to cook. You're going to starve to death. Burn your food. Food poisoning. Yeah, that means you're dependent. You're a slave. No one's been honest with you about this. Uber Eats, DoorDash, I don't care which name of the service you want to say, chef, whatever it is, doesn't matter. You're being turned into a slave. you are a dependent. You're incapable of survival. And the more people who are doing that, if we got tens of millions of young people in their 20s now who can't feed themselves, they can't cook for themselves, they can't shop, they don't have the physical capability of being able to survive, they're slaves. And that turns into, if you have tens of millions of people who are doing this, who are nothing more than a slave class, guess what? That's a national policy. And other nations get to take advantage of it, and they have been. That's the problem with China. That's what we are fighting right now. The fight for the tariffs has been, and I've said this before, back in April and March, the fight about the tariffs isn't about convenience. It is in spite of the lack of convenience. That's why the fight is there. That's why we have to get things made in America. It's about self-sufficiency. It's about being less subordinate to other nations. I don't know. I hope this is making sense to people. I don't know that it is. Mike has bad knee says, we actually have a lot of rice as well. I know we did make some rice, but Arkansas and Louisiana. Okay, I didn't know we made them there, but it does make sense. Louisiana makes sense. But we have regulations that keep production and or processing from being done in the United States, which is stupid. We ship it over to another country to process, and then we bring it back. But when we ship it to the other country, then it gets tainted and contaminated and comes back, and we often lose entire ship containers full of it, and that's a problem. He goes on to say, we grow crops and may have only to ship it to China to get processed and packaged, then it's sent back here. The process is insane. It is insane. It's a stupid process. The more that we take ourselves out of that production line of raw goods to finished product on the essentials. Again, you want a Yu-Gi-Oh card? I don't care where it comes from. You want to have a toy truck? I don't care where it comes from. You want to have some miscellaneous stupid thing? I don't care where it comes from. It doesn't matter. We're talking about the essentials. Critical items that we need for self-defense and or for our food. Survival items need to be done here, and people are missing that, and I think that's hurting us. But we are talking with China. Why? Because people have been complaining, because the mainstream news media has been telling everyone, Orange Man bad, MAGA is bad. Tomorrow, it's going to cost more money. It's going to cost more money for you to get an Uber Eats. It's going to cost more money for someone to go and cook for you and deliver it to your house because it has to go to China and then come back here. So someone's going to get the food, it's going to go over to China, someone's going to process it in China, and then they're going to ship it back here and tell you it's ready to eat. It's fresh from another country. Just got off the ship that it's been on for 3 months, looking to come into America. And now you get to have it. Isn't it fresh? Great. In the meantime, you could have gone to the store, bought it yourself, and made it. I recently taught myself, by the way, just so people don't know. Recently, I taught myself how to bake bread. Believe it or not, I'm 57. And I think I look great for 57. 155 pounds, 5'10 and a half. I'm doing good. Probably the lowest cholesterol in the Bronx for someone who's not sick. Someone who's healthy. Lowest cholesterol in the Bronx. I learned how to make bread. You know the artesian loaf? It's kind of like a roundish loaf of bread. It's got the little bumps, cracks in it. Nothing hard. Flour, salt. I use some vanilla and sugar. You've got yeast and warm water. That's it. That's all it takes. I add cheese sometimes. Yeah. And you make your own bread. Why? Because bread's too expensive. I eat a lot of bread. I love bread. And I eat a lot. I eat loaves of bread at a time. Always have. I have a high metabolism. I love bread. I don't have gluten issues. I don't know anything about it. Don't care. Because it doesn't affect me, so I don't care. I got no allergies. So I just eat bread. And I eat a lot of bread. And I have a high metabolism. So I need foods that I have to burn through. I need those denser foods. Fantastic. But I could have just kept buying very expensive bread being created in another country, shipped here in America. Good. Or I could just do it myself. It's healthier. It doesn't take very long. Believe it or not, it takes about 2.5 hours. Most of that time is because the dough is sitting. I didn't know that. I didn't know. I know some of the people out there right now are laughing, going, "You didn't know how to bake?" No, never had to bake. I cooked everything. I can barbecue. I can fry things. I can stir fry. I can do all the rest of the stuff. But I grill, absolutely. But I never had to bake. Never learned. Now I know. At least I know how to make bread. And I like it. And I think I'm getting pretty good at it. I've made 4 so far. Made 4 loaves of bread. I think I'm pretty good at it. Now, I now know the recipe to my mind. That's becoming independent. And it costs me less per loaf of bread that I am making. I am having bread in the quantity that I want. And it costs me less, but I'm self-sufficient. That's at 57. If I can do that at 57, 18-year-olds should be able to do this. It's not difficult. It's not difficult. We're just not making them live with it. Is it a process? I mean, it takes time. Like I said, it takes 2.5 hours to make a loaf of bread. It takes time. I've got to put the food together, and I've got to clean the dishes afterwards. It takes effort. I got to pay attention. But it's not impossible. It's not even close. It's not even difficult. You can learn. We need more of that in America. We need more of that. Maybe it's me. Maybe it's me. And I'm sure someone is out there right now going, Mike, that is so funny that you didn't know how to bake until you're 57. Hey, could have gone my whole life without learning how to bake. It's true. But when you add up I think it cost me something like 45 cents about $1. About $1 per loaf of bread that I make for the supplies I use. It cost me about $1. And everyone else, when you go get your loaf of bread, you're spending what? $4, $5, $6 for a loaf of bread that's been highly processed, that has to travel halfway around the world. Why? I actually sat down one day and said, I've got the flour, got yeast. It costs me less. Why pay $6? This is under the Biden administration. I'm like, why am I paying so much? Under the Biden administration, prices are going up, 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 up. And I know why. There's less wheat in the world. The cost of flour is going up. There's a global food crisis. I've been telling people about this since February of 2022. That's a fact. February 17th, 2022. You can go back. You can see the video. I've done it. Telling people we're going to be in economic turmoil. It's going to get bad. We're going into a recession. August 2022, we were in the recession. That's when it started. Not under Trump, under Biden. We've been in a recession for 3 years. Knowing that and telling people about this week after week for years, I'm like, why am I not baking bread? Duh. So now I bake my bread. Live the experience. Lead by example. It's not that hard. At least I like to think so. Again, if anyone disagrees, I'm happy to hear your voices. You can always not just leave a chat, you can leave a super chat, that you can leave a Rumble rant, put you at the front of the line, and it supports the channel. You can reach us we're on X, Twitter, we're on Facebook, and Rumble, and YouTube, and 2 or 3 others as well. Let me know. If you think I'm wrong about anything I've just said, please let me know. If you want to know my bread recipe, I can tell you that too. So, I'm still working it. The cheese, I'm having trouble with the cheesy bread. I think I need a whole package of cheese instead of like half or a quarter. It's just not enough. Need more cheese. That's me. Anyway. Okay. So that's kind of the international outlook. The fact that we have a president who, whether he's liked or not, is immaterial. Completely useless, horrible conversation. Throw that out of your mind. That's not important. But we have a president who has a focus, whether you agree with it or not, who is willing to stand by that focus, to stand by that ideology. And he is willing to fight other countries politically, economically, to fight for these things that he believes will be long-term goals for America. And the rest of the world knows it. And they know that they can't, the political tricks that are often used don't affect Donald Trump. Saying mean things about him, trying to get a publicity against him, having media blitzes that attack 92% of the news that has been coming out of the mainstream news media, attacks Donald Trump every single day since the day he's been back in office. Since the day he got back in January 20th, every single day, you get about 8 to 9 negative news stories every single day against Donald Trump and the Trump administration. And he doesn't let it affect him. Most foreign governments have no way to counteract that. That's good for you. That's good for me. That means that when Trump is saying, I'm going to do something, they have no way of turning him around. They can't bribe him. He's too rich, independently rich. He doesn't need the money. He's old, so he doesn't have to worry about a lifetime of how he's going to be remembered. He's not a true politician. He's not concerned about that. Not to say he's not flawed. He is. He's got his problems, no doubt. But the traditional things that are used against most politicians to get them to bend the knee to do what other political organizations want don't work on Trump. That's a good thing. Again, you don't have to like him. Never been required. I didn't like Obama. No one cared. I don't like Biden. No one cared. I didn't like Clinton. No one cared. I actually didn't like the first Bush. Didn't like him as president. No one cared. Because no one cares whether you like a president or not. Although we keep being told today, oh, but you have to like the president. No, you don't. Not a job requirement. Not important. No one cares if you like them or not. The world doesn't care if you like them or not. Doesn't matter if they're nice people or not. Please stop letting people lie to you like this and say, well, you have to like the president. No, you don't. You don't have to like him to support what he's doing. You don't have to like him to support the ideology. Has nothing to do with it. Anyway, let me go on. Speaking of things that the left do not like, things that are happening. Jeanine Pirro, who is a member of the Fox News program The Five, she's a former judge, so she's qualified, a former judge who is a host from Fox News, as reported by CNN. So I'm going with CNN's take on this story, not Fox News's. CNN's take on this. This happened back on May 8th, about 3 days ago, Thursday. She is being named as the interim U.S. Attorney for Washington, D.C. This is a highly prestigious and politically important office. Democrats are losing their mind. Progressives are losing their mind. They're going crazy. They can't stand this. I mean, it's a win, obviously. Bragging points for Fox News, obviously. She's popular amongst the MAGA crowd. And that just drives the left crazy. Oh my God, how could you do this? This is so evil. This is so terrible. She's qualified. Everyone else that Trump was trying to put into this position, the left was fighting against. The left was pushing back against it. Everyone that they wanted someone who was more of a leftist. They wanted their progressive policies being promoted in Washington, D.C., being promoted everywhere they can. They wanted a liberal, progressive interpretation so that they would be able to have more power. Well, they lost. Now they got a Fox News host. They're losing their damn minds. And here's the thing. They don't have a real argument. She's a judge. She's qualified. She's qualified, eminently qualified for the position. So they don't have an argument saying, well, we don't like her. Again, who cares? It's not about like. Is she the best person? Probably not. Would the left allow the best person to be put into that position? No. They were fighting against the initial choices by the Trump administration. Huh? They were fighting against the initial choices. So, there you go. So this is the best of those who could get into the position. The left got what they wanted. The left got exactly what they asked for. I think it's funny. Hey, Peace Logic. Thank you for being here with us. We've covered a lot of stuff so far. All right, so we're right about at the 2-hour mark. And of course, my little puppy, who is, of course, 14 years old. For the people who are new to the channel, yes, I have a puppy. He's called Khan. And when I say he's a puppy, he's 14 years old. Khan, come here. No. He's trying to get my attention. He wants to go out. I'm going to take him out in just a moment. I just want you guys to see him because he's all of 20 pounds of power. Come here. Come here. Come here. Oh, yeah. He's ignoring me. Come here. There. Yes. Yeah. Oh, yes. Oh, here's my puppy. Here's Gone. Gone. Look at them. Say hi. 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 Hi, 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 hi. Say hi. All right, I love you too. So, yes, that was a 14-year-old Scotty Bichon. He's a mixed breed. Good dog. Very good dog. Smart dog. And he usually comes about now to let me know that he wants to go out. So what I do at this point, now, if you've come into the show late, this is a great opportunity. You can spend about the next 45 minutes. We're going to be coming back at 5:15. Okay, 5:15, we will be back. I'm going to play a prior program that we covered. What is it? I had something lined up for this. What did I have lined up? Oh, a free speech section. We have something on free speech going back to 4 years ago, 2020. Because with what we're seeing at the University of Washington, what we're seeing at Columbia, what we're seeing at Harvard, when the buildings are being taken over and students are running rampant, and we're seeing groups like BLM and Antifa rising back up, I want you to remember what we were going through during the summer of love. The literal, what we were talking about, and the issues that were facing America when we had the summer of love that they're trying to reproduce right now in 2025. I want you to remember that so we don't go through the same process again. And so we're going to play that for you. And we'll be back at 5:15. And by the way, Khan is a staunch Republican conservative like me. His name is Genghis Khan. What do you expect? So, that's my puppy. I love him. So I'm going to go walk him. You guys can have a cigarette. You can get something to eat. You can stretch out your legs. Come back at 5:15 or stay with us. Please stay with us on the channel and take an opportunity, see what was going on in 2020 so that we are prepared for the summer of 2025 as we see Antifa and BLM and the progressive left are trying to do again what they did last time. Be prepared. Don't forget. The news media thought you forgot. I didn't. And we'll be back then, and then we'll talk a little bit more. Yes, I'm leaving up the chat. The chat is from Current.
All right, folks, how is everybody? I hope everyone is doing well. We're having a slight technical difficulty, starting me off about it with that. In fact, I want to mention to you all that there's been a lot of developments that happened since about 2 o'clock.
Okay, just so you know, I forgot that the audio is bad on this one. Please bear with it. There is still important information. I think the audio gets better as it goes on.
In the morning today, August 16th, that changed the very way that we're going to do this show today, how we're going to be presenting some of the information. And I'm going to go over that in detail very shortly. And in about 10 minutes, we're going to be having the live update on what's going on with Back the Blue. So for those who are not aware about it, right now there is a Back the Blue event. It is the Broome County Back the Blue Drive, where they're going to be driving through several cities in the county of Broome County in New York State. Over 217 people have stated that they're going to be going. 675 people have mentioned that they were interested. And in fact, and I want to get this update for you, we have a preview of what was happening just before it actually started. And I'm going to show you that right now. So this is in, I believe it's Endicott, New York, or Vestal, New York. And as you can see, there are hundreds of people. Actually, excuse me, it's in the Broome County SUNY Broome campus. And there are hundreds of people who are coming out to support the local law enforcement in Broome County. And they have a lot to say. So I want to definitely thank people who are going out to that event. Many of them are not going to be on the show because they're at the event instead. And I thank each and every one of the people who are there. It is a big deal. And we're going to be talking about what's going on with Black Lives Matters. We're going to be talking about what's going on in our community and how this is affecting us, not just in the southern tier of New York, but across the entire nation. As always, you are welcome to call in at 607-242-1582. You are free to send us a text at Facebook or on YouTube at the No Soundbites Allowed, and let us know your thoughts. Now, again, in about 8 minutes, we're going to have a call coming in live from the Back the Blue Drive, telling us about that event. So just be aware, we're going to get a call shortly. So until then, you know, there has been a lot that has been said about what's going on throughout our nation, in particular, in Portland, we've seen 80 days of protests that have been going on. Even though people like Representative Nadler has denied that there are any protests in America, that there is no such thing as Antifa, we're seeing night after night after night that this is in fact true. KGW8 is reporting about this. 80 nights of protests and violence and riots. We know that in New York City, just reported by the New York Post, 4 people were killed, 11 people were wounded overnight on August 15th because defunding the police. 600 police officers were taken off the job, taken off of their duties, and the public were left undefended or less defended than they were. And we see that the count over 276 increased shootings, over 176 increased deaths or victims of shootings in New York City alone. And you know, I have to believe that part of this is because Cannon Hinman, this is a 5-year-old boy. He was killed. 5-year-old boy. And we know that he was killed for no reason whatsoever, through no fault of his own. What fault could a 5-year-old have that would cause another individual to walk up and shoot them in the back of the head? There is no excuse for this. There is no way to call this anything but outrageous, insane, depraved. It's sad. And you know what's really sad about that? It took over a week of the news media to being inundated from social media, from the public talking about this, before the major news media a week later to come out and actually cover this. They started covering this on August 14th. That young man was killed on August 8th. And this is in North Carolina. But we hear constantly, this doesn't exist. There is no violence there. You're just wrong. We've heard about the killing of Jessica Dye Whitaker, who was killed for saying all lives matter. We've heard about the 16-year-old and the 14-year-old that were killed at the Seattle Chaz. We heard about the 8-year-old who was killed in Atlanta because their parents drove in the wrong place because Black Lives Matters didn't want or wanted to have their own autonomous zone and killed their child. I have to believe that when we're seeing violence across the nation, in Portland, in Austin, in Seattle, in New York City, Chicago, North Carolina, Atlanta, when we're seeing this over and over again, and we see that the same individuals that are responsible for this tend to be the individuals who are aligned with Black Lives Matters and Antifa, we have a problem. And we have a problem that needs to be addressed. But you know what? You don't see that because if you look up Democrats denounce Cannon Hinman death, you will not find a single response. Black Lives Matters is a political organization. They are part of the Democratic Party. The Democrats especially should be standing up and denouncing these acts of absolute violence, these vile actions by these rogue individuals, this splinter group of their party. And yet we have yet to hear a single statement, a single comment, a single denouncement of this senseless violence. And you know, the whole nation came together. The whole nation came together when George Floyd died. And everyone was willing to say, you know what, that was wrong. No one should die in that way. We all universally agreed. Can we not all universally, what, the audio is bad? No, I'm sorry about that. Thank you, Ron, for letting me know. I'll try and fix it. Is that a little better? Okay, we're trying to fix the audio. Like I said, just before the show started, had a bunch of technical issues that hit. Hopefully that improved it. Ron, let me know that it's a little bit better. So, I know. There, that should fix it a little bit. But we know that the nation can come together and can denounce evil, acts of evil and violence and wrongdoing. We did it with George Floyd. Why can we not do it with Cameron Hinnant? George Floyd died and was used as a political tool to advance the goals and agenda of a socialist organization called Black Lives Matters. We know it's socialist because that's what their leaders have said. We know that their leaders have said in Chicago, as an example, that looting and violence are fine to advance their goals. They will do anything that they can. And yet, we cannot hear in our nation the same kind of outcry, the outrage, the anger that says that this is wrong, that a 5-year-old should not be killed for no reason whatsoever. Because a black man shot the white child. Is that really where America has come to? Is that really what we're thinking about now? I want that to sit in your mind. A 5-year-old was killed senselessly, and not one elected Democrat anywhere in the nation is willing to say that that was horrible, that that was terrible, that that should not have happened. Not a single one. What is going on in our nation? How could they not say that? How can they not react to that? Well, there's a lot of things that are happening in our nation. And again, we're going to get to a few things. And I know the internet is messing with our system right now, and we're having dropped frames. I don't know why. It's always interesting that sometimes when the most controversial topics come up, the system just messes with us. And I'm going to try and fix it live as we're going so that we can make this better for you folks. But I want you to understand that there is no way that we as a nation can survive if we are not unified on these issues. You know, we have to be. We have to be. Hang on. Hello, I believe this is the call that I've been expecting. This is Michael. You're on No Soundbites.
Hey, Mike.
Hello. I'm with you. I can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we hear you.
All right, I'm over at the Back to Blue rally from ECC to Glenwood Park. Talk about a lot of people showing up. And I'm also very impressed with the support that we're getting from people on the sidewalks and as well as just regular residents that are waving flags, waving at us. It's awesome.
Okay, so that people understand who I'm speaking to, what's your first name?
This is Mike, I'm sorry.
All right. And Mike, so you are in the drive to support the law enforcement in Broome County, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, I believe we showed some video prior to the start of the event at 2 o'clock. It looked like a couple hundred people. How many people would you say are participating in this event right now?
Oh my God, 100 is an understatement. There's got to be over 1,000 people here. There really does. I mean, there's Jeeps here, there's classic cars here, there are hundreds of motorcycles here. It's awesome.
So there are people with motorcycles, there's people with Jeeps.
Classic cars, you name it, they're here. And I even heard bagpipers in the background. That whole parking lot over at in front of the new science building was full of people getting ready to go on this parade. It was amazing.
Okay, so it's been quite the event so far.
Yes, it has.
And I had spoken with one of the organizers of the event, and she had mentioned to me that police authorities were there as part of the event. They are leading the event. They're making sure that everyone is safe and that there is no interruption. Is that correct?
That is correct. I've seen multiple police officers, including police auxiliary, blocking intersections so we can go through without a problem. We also have a police escort out in front as well. Every once in a while, I can see him. If he goes up onto a hill, there's just so many cars here.
Okay. Can you tell me, is there any protest? Are we seeing Antifa, Black Lives Matters plot? Are they out counter-protesting?
I've only seen one person screaming out Black Lives Matter so far. That's it. And we're almost to Glenwood Park now, so that's all the way down. We came down Prospect, down Front Street, down Main Street, and that's the only person I've seen so far.
Okay. Can you tell me, do you know if there is anything that is at the end of the event after the drive? Are you aware of anyone, if they're having any kind of speech or any conversation?
There's been a lot of conversations. I haven't seen any kind of speech or speakers yet. Perhaps there may be some at Glenwood Park, but that's it. And another thing I want to know, too, is the amount of flags and banners that are all over these cars is amazing. It's just so nice to see this kind of support for our law enforcement.
It is an amazing difference from what we saw on Tuesday.
You're not kidding.
And it's also very different than what we saw in Bainbridge yesterday,
Yes.
where members, it is alleged, members of Black Lives Matter attacked a elderly man.
Yes, I heard. I spoke with one member that was actually there, Matt, and he said the person that was attacked was disabled and older, which is disgusting.
I have seen that as well, and I see that in the reporting by Fox 40 News, someone had responded from being there that a disabled 86th Airborne veteran and a local business owner was attacked because he said the words Trump 2020.
Yep.
Which is incredibly sad.
That is sad. Well, we have no free speech any longer, unless we're speaking about the narrative.
Yeah.
Which is sad.
Which is very sad. So tell me, in the event that's going on right now today, have people been speaking about the nature of what's going on with Black Lives Matters? Are they talking about law enforcement? What have been some of the conversations you have had about this?
Conversations I've had so far, people are very supportive, and they talk about supporting law enforcement, and they're disgusted with what's going on right now, with all the protests that are going on. They're just simply disgusted. I mean, these are the people that, when you call 911, they're the ones that are supposed to respond to you, and they're supposed to help you, and these people want them gone. These protesters want them gone altogether, so it's horrible.
Yeah, part of the defunding the police effort that is espoused by Black Lives Matters, Antifa, and progressive leaders of tomorrow.
That is correct.
Are you driving as we speak?
No, I'm actually out of my car. We just got to our destination point, and I'm literally looking at, and you mentioned 100 earlier today. Mm-hmm. I think I'm looking at 200 motorcycles as I'm just parked here with people in support of the police.
Over 200? Okay, you're counting somewhere in that. So there's hundreds, literally hundreds of motorcycles, vehicles, people that are out supporting. Is that correct?
Oh, yeah. Right now, this parking lot is full at Glenwood Park, and there are people piling in right now in support of law enforcement.
Okay.
I bet I would say, as it's saying, okay, here comes the last cars in now, and I would say the convoy coming in here was probably about 2 miles long.
2 miles. Wow. That is incredible. And that's a beautiful statement of
Yes.
people who support our law enforcement, who disagree with having it defunded. I know you're there at the event, and you can definitely call back. I want to make sure that you get to enjoy the activities there. Is there anything else you would want to say live to people who are listening right now?
The only thing I want to say now is support our boys in blue because they put their lives on the line every day for us. So if there's any speakers, I'll be sure to record them and send them to you.
Absolutely. We look forward to that. And we thank you for that.
All right.
All right. Thank you, Mike.
All right. Yep. Thank you for having me on. All right. Bye.
Bye-bye. All right, folks. So as we had mentioned before, you can, of course, call, and we were just having a conversation with the gentleman identified as Mike, who is part of the event, the Back the Blue Drive in Broome County, that went through several cities and is a celebration of our law enforcement. It's an important thing, especially when we see at this time in our nation where so much is not being told to the public. Things like the killing of Can and Hinnant, where we see that the news media had absolutely no interest in telling the true story, in letting the public be aware and notified about what's going on. That's terrifying. Or when we see several stories that are minimized. Let me jump into a slightly different subject I want to get to. There was a major issue I want to get to at the end of this, though. But, we heard back on July 22nd, the Broome County executive, Jason Garnar, came out on July 22nd and said that the Broome County will go bankrupt. There's just no money left. That they're out of money and they don't know what to do. And they were begging for federal aid, as you can see in this article from WBNG. As I mentioned on, it was July 23rd, I was very sad, and you'll see descriptions in the YouTube video description, links to everything I'm putting up here. We made it very clear for people, you're not going to see any benefit. You're not going to get federal help. But someone saw that and they were speaking with me. They said, Mike, but it's going to be okay because the federal government is going to step in. They're going to save us. I mean, that is what their job is. That's what I was told by this individual who happens to be an independent and was just asking that question of me. And I had to say, no, the federal government isn't. No, because it's not their job, because they're not. And so, let me explain.
The campaign has been powered by the people.
Oops, sorry. Sorry, not intentional. So, let me explain what you just saw there. We see that our government is taking actions like with COVID-19, with our finances, in forcing the public into an unacceptable situation. They're bankrupting our counties. They're bankrupting our cities. They're allowing violence and violent individuals to control our cities, to control the narrative of what's going on in our government. And they're passing around this idea that, don't worry, you're going to be okay, because government's going to take care of you. And when I said that, no, that's not going to happen, I was very much correct. Congress closed down. We saw that the House of Representatives stopped discussions about funding for counties, for individuals, for unemployment, for businesses. They stopped that on August 2nd. They're gone. They're not coming back until September. Government is not coming to save you because that's not their job. And the fact that there's only 2 counties that actually are at this moment declared to be going bankrupt means the government's absolutely not going to go into that. And I explained that in the prior video. But the news media isn't paying attention to this. They're not telling you about this. And they're not telling you about the issues that matter because there seems to be an agenda that says that they want to deny that there are riots that are going on for 80 days in a row. They want to deny the fact that there are killings, hundreds and hundreds of shootings and killings and people being wounded because of the decisions of government to fall in line with a group of radicals, Black Lives Matter, plot, progressive leaders of tomorrow, and individuals that demand compliance or else. And I'm getting to that or else. And I do want to make that clear. They are very clear about that. So, and we see this at every level of our government. Because remember, back in 2018, it was actually October of 2018, that I first mentioned that we're going to see Kamala Harris as the vice president. That Democrats have gone completely to the far left. That they are not looking to actually help people. They're out there to help their image. That they're going to have Kamala Harris as the vice president because she's a woman of color, not because she's qualified. And I went into that to some extent at one point, and I want to play that for you as well, back on December 3rd of 2019.
In some respects, you can say that's our nation. Our nation is our mother. Not in the sense of our parents, but it takes care of us. It helps us grow. It nurtures us. It gives us freedom, the freedom to be able to become what we want to be. And as we succeed, our nation succeeds. So in a way, it's kind of like a mother. And Kamala Harris disrespects that. The Democratic candidates disrespect that. The goal of socialism is to completely disrespect and remove freedom.
So I said that back on December 3rd of 2019. I stand by it. I see no reason why that's not still as correct today as it was back in December, as much as it was in October of 2018. Shawshine Johnson says, "Hey, sweetie, do you have a very weird vibration when you're talking?" As I thank you for bringing that up. Just before we went live, the entire system crashed. And so that's why I'm using my backup camera right now. My audio is not coming across properly, and I do apologize for that. I'm trying to fix it as we go. It was either delay actually coming on live or not being able to do the show on time. So I'm trying to make the best of this, and I thank you for making me aware. I'm trying to adjust it as we go. If you're seeing that it's still affecting the audio quality, please let me know about that. But we're trying. And I think it's important that the show must go on. Difficulties with technology, issues with how this is being broadcast because we're seeing problems today. And it's really weird. I have the major issues. The systems are being affected only when I talk about the big issues. I don't know what it is, whether it's Facebook, YouTube, I don't know. The internet overlords seem to always want to mess with some of the biggest issues. So I apologize for that. Let me jump forward to something that's really important. A lot of people may have noticed that on Tuesday of this week, no worries, thank you for letting me know. On Tuesday, and by the way, folks, you can comment at any point. You don't have to agree with me. You can tell me, Mike, you got it wrong. You can say, Mike, I disagree. You don't understand. Let me explain. Please, call in. Call in. But I want to tell you why the show got changed up, and maybe that was what the last minute changes may have affected the system. But let me explain why I'm so upset. See, last night, let me start. On August 11th, there was a Back the Blue event in Binghamton, New York. And that event was invaded by none other than BLM. And at that event, I believe I have video of it. I know I have video of it. I was talking about it on WNBF.
People actually invited them to peaceably assemble to be able to make their statement with their signs. That was fine. When they walked up the boom box and started
started to blare that in my ear and that of other speakers, when they decided to start playing cornhole and other games in front of us, obstructing the news media from being able to see it, when they started to surround and intimidate both me and the news media from being able to give interviews on why we were there, yeah, that's no longer peaceably assembly. That's a disruption. That's intimidation. And I have to tell you that in my personal opinion, I believe this is motivated by fear.
So, on Tuesday, August 11th, there was a small Back the Blue rally, which I was one of the speakers at and one of the co-creators of. And as you can see, Black Lives Matters use intimidation and try to instill fear in us and actively try to assault us with sound to prevent us from being able to speak. These are the same people that on Saturday, yesterday, were out amongst the public and they were demanding that they had to be heard and that no one else could be able to stop their voice from being heard. That's what they said yesterday in Bainbridge, New York. But in Binghamton, New York, as I just showed you in the video, they were happy to silence any and every other voice. Well, as bad as that was, as much as they have done things such as you can see here, where we saw Masai Andrews, one of the leaders of Black Lives Matter, he recently was out and about, and he was telling me that he was using racial slurs. As you can see here on the screen, this is his alternative name on Facebook, as he says, "Shut up." And I won't say the word, but you sound it out, yeah, that's a racial slur. These individuals went one step further yesterday, and just so you can see it a little bit better, because I want you to understand, and they're coming for me. This is from my campaign page, and not everyone agrees with me, and that's okay. Not everyone will vote for me. That's okay. But it's not okay when individuals who publicly go onto a public format, so I'm not doxing anyone. This gentleman, Al Toth, came out and publicly said that he, apparently as part of Black Lives Matter, is going to come out and try to threaten me with physical violence. You know, when an organization has to live by fear, when they can't stand that other people have a different opinion, when they resort to violence, especially against those who are the most at risk. They've attacked, allegedly, we've seen that their members have attacked an elderly man in the Binghamton-Broome County area. They, yesterday in Bainbridge, are alleged to have attacked a 68-year-old man who is disabled. They're now threatening to use physical violence against me and to try and scare people away from an election campaign because someone dares say, hey, I like my police. I think that defunding the police is a bad idea. You know, when we have to face that in America, that's a problem. Not if they wanted to peaceably assemble, to go out and say for themselves, hey, here's our sign, we disagree with the police, we want to defund the police. You can do that. If you want to say that vanilla ice cream is better than Rocky Road, you can do that. Protest all you want. But these aren't protests when violence is being introduced, where we're seeing that they are using racial slurs and that they are using threats of violence to try and intimidate people, to make people scared so that they can get their way, so that they can advance their political agenda. I will not stand for that. I will not back down from that. I will not allow that to happen. And as we can see, and as we have just heard, hundreds of people throughout our community are actively resisting that they are supporting our police, They are supporting our law enforcement. They are supporting our community because they are not afraid. Whoops, I'm not showing the thing I want to show here. Excuse me. Because they are not afraid, because they are not going to bow down to some radical organization. Because threats of violence do not make you safer, do not make our nation safer. You know, I know today's been a little chaotic. And the fact that the system is crashing, the audio is not as good as it normally is, I apologize. Since 2 o'clock in the morning, I've been dealing with the anger that has come from Black Lives Matters, threatening my life. I've had to notify friends and family to be on the lookout for members of Black Lives Matter, members of Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow, members of Antifa that would seek to do harm to them and their property and to me. Not because I will back down, I will not, but because these individuals have so little, they have no argument. Their only argument is back down or else we'll use violence against you. And you know what I'm waiting for? Where are the Democrats in Broome County? And we see this across the country. Where are the Democrats saying that they reject this violence? Where are, and in this picture, you'll see noted going left to right, that's County Executive Jason Garnar, who is still begging the federal government to pay for his bad planning economically and bankrupting Broome County. We see Assemblywoman Donna Lopardo, the fourth most powerful person in the New York State Assembly, which is controlled by Democrats, and that is responsible for things like the criminal justice reform that has allowed criminals to be put back onto our streets to endanger our people. And we see that there is legislator Bob Wessler, who is my opponent in a race for legislator, and I'm not using this as a campaign thing. I'm saying that where is your outrage? Where is your denouncement of the violence of these individuals trying to silence every other voice? Why are Democrats not willing to say anything? I'll even go as far as, this is Representative Anthony Brindisi. Mr. Brindisi, where is your statement, Congressman Brindisi, saying that in your district, in your community, the people you represent do not bow down to threat of violence? That having people who are silencing the First Amendment is unacceptable in our communities. Where are you? Why are you saying nothing about this? Why are they ignoring this just as much as our media has ignored the death of Canon Hinnant? Why does it require us to go to social media to force these individuals to actually make a very simple statement that they do not agree with anyone who would silence the First Amendment rights of citizens, that they do not agree with intimidation and fear tactics, and that no one should interfere with an election because of their feelings or that they have a different political view, and they should never threaten anyone? Is this too much to ask for? I don't know. Maybe County Executive Jason Garnar is afraid that if he says something that is against Antifa, that is against Black Lives Matter, that is against the violence, the threat that they are now currently putting out there, that maybe Representative Brindisi will not back him in trying to make sure that he gets the federal funding that he wants. I hope that's not the reason. Maybe it's that we see that some of these Democrats are terrified and afraid of the violence of Black Lives Matters being turned against them. I don't know. But I can tell you this. We will never end the violence that is coming from individuals in Black Lives Matters. The threats that they are putting out there, the racial slurs that they are using against people. We're never going to see that end if we do not stand up to that and say we do not accept that in our communities. We don't accept that in Portland, New York. We don't accept that in New York City. We don't accept that in North Carolina. We don't accept that in America. We will stand up to people who are violent and cruel and evil and manipulative and using emotion and just terroristic tactics to try and silence people, to bully people into doing what they want. That is not what America is about. That is not what we stand for. And I am so happy to see that hundreds of Americans are out right now and they are lining up. They are celebrating their First Amendment right without any violence and saying they believe something. And they can do that without taking away anyone else's right to say whatever that they want. They're not taking away anyone's right from saying that we can improve America. They're out there saying that we can work together with those people who are protecting us to make America better. You know what? This I actually support. This I believe in. This is what I think America is all about. But I definitely can tell you that America is not about individuals like what we saw on Tuesday over at Black Lives, where Black Lives Matters is going out and they are using intimidation tactics to silence the members of the press and to try and oppress individuals who are simply saying an idea. And if we don't stand up to that, we cannot expect, I don't care what community you're in. If you are telling me right now that you believe, well, this isn't happening in my community, it's not going to bother me at all. Yes, it will. Because they are coming after you too. Binghamton is a town of 40,000 people. Broome County has 190,000 people. It's not on the map for most people. Most people don't even know where upstate New York is. And it's happening here. It's happening in Portland. It's happening in Austin, Texas. It's happening in Nashville. It's happening in Asheville, North Carolina. It's happening to you. It happened in Bainbridge, New York, just a day ago. Do you think Black Lives Matter, that progressive leaders tomorrow, the fringe, radical, violent members of the Democratic Party are going to stop just because you're not in the big cities? Don't believe that. They're coming there. Their threats are not just threats just against me, not just against an election campaign I happen to be in. They are making threats against you, against your life, your livelihood, your ability to live free. And if you disagree with them, and God forbid you happen to be black and conservative and black and Republican, then they are willing to go to any ends necessary, including to use violence, apparently, to try and make their point. Am I aggravated about that? Absolutely I am. Yes, I wanted to talk about the violence in Portland. Yes, I wanted to talk about the fact that we have counties across America that are starting to run out of money and that there is no federal help for that. Yes, I wanted to talk about Canon Hinnant and the fact that it's deplorable that he died, that it is insulting to his life and his memory, the innocent 5-year-old, to say that the news media had to be forced to actually mention his death, that Democrats are so fearful of this fringe group of their party that they're unwilling to denounce the violence that happened to a 5-year-old. A 5-year-old. And that there is so much going on in our nation that people are terrified to speak up. And we've seen poll after poll that has said that there is, 60% of America that is afraid to speak up. That 80% of America, including black Americans, want to see police in their neighborhoods to protect them. And yet we're being held hostage. And it is destroying our economies. It is destroying our communities. You know what? I'm not afraid of that. I will stand up to that. I do back our police officers, our law enforcement. You know what? In my community, law enforcement since they've had body cams, for a couple of years now, they've had body cams. And every single accusation of police brutality and abuse of power, every single time that body cam is reviewed with the person making the complaint, it has been found that there is no proof, zero, that individuals like Black Lives Matter are using the anger, the emotion against the police to try and create a scenario that doesn't exist. Our police in Broome County, our law enforcement officials have done some of the best jobs in the entire state. Why wouldn't we celebrate that? That's good for black people, that's good for white people, that's good for Latinos, that's good for Asians. Why wouldn't we celebrate that? And yet, I get racial slurs thrown at me. I get threats of violence being put against me, apparently from individuals in Black Lives Matters and Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow, to try and intimidate me and to put fear in me. And I reject that. You reject that. And that is because we are unified in America under the Constitution with our rights, the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, the 10th Amendment, to say, no, you do not get to force me to believe what you want to believe. That isn't how it works. That's not how we make our communities better. I know the volume, I can hear it in my ear set. There's a vibration there. It's not coming across perfectly. This isn't the way I wanted to speak about this. But this is the way it is. And we need to speak up about this. Now, again, you can call it 607-242-1582. You can tell me you disagree. You can send in a text either at 607-242-1582 or on Facebook or on YouTube and say, Mike, I disagree. You can call in and say you agree. You can say that you have a different point of view. Maybe there's something about this that I have missed. And no, I didn't forget that Yale was just found to be racist. That Yale has been engaging in racist policies against whites, against Asians. And that's the thing, Asians, that's something that's not being talked about in the news. You keep
no soundbites allowed is the name of his game. With a coffee in one hand and his puppy on his lap, cigarettes curling, smoking his political trap. Michael Vass roars through the screen, he flies, painting red and blue skies with his fiery cry. He's the world's watchdog, calling out the bluff. Right-wing swagger, but his heart's pretty tough.
Hey everybody, thank you for joining us back. I know it's 5:15, we're right on time. And thank you for, I know the audio was not the best there. That does happen. Life is imperfect sometimes, and yeah, I don't have the equipment or the staffing like MSNBC, CNN, ABC, New York Times. I wish we did. We don't. So what can you do there? I came back in and I just want to let you guys know, slight problem. My dog is, we went out, we walked, we were fine, and now he's losing his mind. And so I'm thinking he needs to walk again. He seems to be having an issue. So bear with me. It's going to be, what that means is I take care of the health of my dog first. Obviously. I love him dearly. I want him to be healthy. So what that means is that I wanted to make sure you guys have more information about what's going on there. Because we're going to see more of this from Antifa, BLM this year. We're going to see them do more of this violence, these attacks on individuals, as they have been doing. I mean, you're seeing that right now. They're taking over the school buildings. The University of Washington, they tried to burn down some of the buildings there. You're seeing it at Columbia and at Harvard and at Cornell as they destroy some of the property. These are some of these schools are public schools, some are not. They're destroying everything. So this is a problem. And they're doing it to silence you, to affect you. What I'm going to do is I want to play one more piece so I can walk my dog, be about 20 minutes, and then I'm going to come back. But I'm just trying to find something that... Here we go. I just want people to see exactly what these students do. What we are going to see this summer. We're having a second summer of love. And we're already seeing it happening at the colleges, which means it's coming everywhere else as well. So, bear with me.
Hello, everyone,
as I
and
take care of
thank
my
you for
dog
joining
here
us.
right now.
That's right. This is...
And then I'm going to be right back. The audio will be better in this one, but I'll be right back.
No Soundbites Allowed. In fact, we're going to be launching a great new program called Conservatives Standing Tall. We'll be talking about that in a moment, but we want to give people a couple seconds here, a few moments, to catch up with us on what exactly is going to be happening here today, what we're going to be talking about. So we want to make sure everyone's going to have a chance to listen in. So we're going to give it a couple more seconds, and then we're going to get right into the show. And 1, 2, 3, here we go, folks, here we go. Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me. This is Michael Voss, and as you can tell, we're going to have some guests on the program. We're going to be talking about a lot of things, and I'm over here on, I shifted sides here, because I'm going to be talking with a couple of students who were involved in an incredible event that had happened this weekend. You may have already seen some of it. You may have heard about it. Oops, wrong screen. You may have heard about it already, that there was a near riot at Binghamton University on Thursday. That was the 14th of November. Today is obviously November 17th. And this has been gaining a lot of attention, mostly national attention. And you've seen it, you may have seen it on Daily Wire, you may have seen it from the Young Americans Foundation, but essentially they've been talking about this horrible, shameful, violent attack against students for the mere fact that those students were talking, that they were sharing their thoughts. And that's really a terrifying thought. And there's video of this, which was provided by Young Americans Foundation, and you may see it. Let's see. We got
they're oppressing and genocidal Palestinians.
Oh, really? Did you see all the rockets which were just fired? Did you not see any of the rockets?
The rockets are hitting Israel every day, really. Let's keep hitting Israel until they give their land back.
Oh.
Let's keep hitting them. Good for them.
That kind of scared me right there. Did you hear that, folks? It's let's keep hitting Israel until they get their land back. So let's use violence. Let's use violence. Now, there's a lot of aspects to this story, a lot of things that I want to go through, a lot of things that are who we have in studio right now. A gentleman who actually went through this entire process, and that is John Lezak. He is the Vice President of Turning Point USA chapter at Binghamton University. He is the Secretary for the Binghamton College Republicans. Sorry, I always get that part a little thrown off.
It's all right.
And he was there. He actually had to survive the mob attack. It was horrible. And I'm going to be speaking with him, and John, I'm going to come right to you in a second, but I just want to make this very clear, because I've been talking about this for a while. This should not be just me talking about this. This should not be just Daily Wire talking about this. The local media won't touch this. They just aren't covering this story, and they should be covering this story. This is important. This is about the First Amendment. This is about malice. This is about menacing, intimidation. This is about politics, about what it is to be a progressive, what it is to be a libertarian or a conservative or a Republican. And we need to talk about this. By the way, folks, throughout this show, I am going to be looking and I am watching on YouTube for any comments. I'd love to have it on Facebook, but Facebook is blocking us. You can reach us on Twitter. You can reach us on our phone, which is 607-242-1582. And you can leave your comments. You can text us there, or you can call in and we will have you on live. But enough of me talking right now, because I wanted to set the tone a little bit, give people an idea. But let me start with, so John, it was Thursday morning. You went out. What were you guys thinking? What was the thought?
So we, at College Republicans and Turning Point USA, we decided we were going to advertise for our Arthur Laffer event that is coming up on Monday. That is Monday, November 18th at 7:30. We are hosting Arthur Laffer, the famous economist. We decided it was best to advertise for that event. And with that, we got hot chocolate, we got flyers. We decided we were going to hand out both at the same time, and hopefully we're going to get enough people to come to our event. Now, at that same time, Turning Point was also coming. We had our Turning Point representative coming in, who planned on tabling on Thursday as well. So we decided we'd do both at once, kill two birds with one stone, and do both at the same time. Now, Turning Point was advertising for their organization. Okay. They were signing people up. They were giving out pins, posters, and they were just getting people interested in the organization.
Okay.
Now, in our planning, we decided the best way to get attention for this would be to wear Make America Great Again hats.
MAGA hats, okay.
Of course. And our TPUSA president, Lacey, had purchased a Donald Trump cardboard cutout. And we figured that was probably just such a good idea. You know, it would get so many people looking at us. It would get us so much attention. It would be a good idea to bring that out with us. We knew it would get some negative attention. We did not think it would get the negative attention that it got.
Okay, before we go further,
Yes.
let me stop right there. So just so people understand this, because not everyone is going to a college or they don't have tabling events.
Yeah.
And I know when I went to college, we didn't have them, at least by that name. So when you said you were going out, you were going to table. What is a tabling event?
Of course, yeah. I realize
That's
not
okay.
everyone knows that. Yeah. Tabling is essentially you get your organization out, you get a table, and you do whatever. There's many objectives to tabling. Mostly it's to get people interested. It's to pull people in, to sign people up, or to give away things. In our case, it was to give away hot chocolate and flyers. So our tabling was setting up a table, getting our flyers and hot chocolate on the table, getting a nice sign that would attract people in, and then pulling people over to the table and giving away these things to them.
So it's marketing. It's essentially just marketing.
It is marketing.
It's a way to get people to know about your group.
Yep, that's it.
Okay, so that's fine. No one cares about that. I mean, that's normal. Now, on tabling, let me ask you this. Has any organization at Binghamton University ever tabled an event without approval?
Yes.
Okay. And have any of those groups been political, like the Democrats, the progressives on campus, anyone?
Yes.
Okay. So this is a common practice.
Yes.
Basically, you get a table. If I'm understanding it right, and please tell me if I'm not, you get a table, you put it out, you have a flyer, a flag, a cutout poster, whatever it may be, and you say, hey, we exist. We have an idea. Would you like to know about it?
That's what tabling is.
That's okay. So we understand what tabling is.
Yep.
So I've seen people do that everywhere in Binghamton, New York City. People are just on the side of the street. Were you blocking the ability of people to walk past you?
Absolutely not. We were right where the there's a little stone wall near the edge. We were just there. That's where we were.
Okay.
We were not anywhere near the middle. We were totally on the side.
Okay, so people had a clear walkway. If they wanted to just walk right past you, they could have done it.
Yeah, we were next to a light pole. If they were going to be walking where the tables were, they would have hit a light pole. You know, we were not in the way in any sense.
Okay, so tabling exists.
Yes.
Organizations of every type table at any time.
Yes.
And you didn't obstruct or cause anyone to be forced to be involved with what you were doing.
Absolutely not.
Okay. Did people just walk past you?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Did people walk past you, make comments?
Yes.
Pro, negative?
More negative than pro. Usually when people support us, they come up to us.
Okay.
And then people can make passive-aggressive remarks as they walk by. Those are always the opposition.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a normal kind of event where if you didn't care about it, if you don't care about politics, you just walk right past.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So that's fair.
Mm-hmm.
And that's common.
Yes.
And that's consistent.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So let me take another question, because I've been reading all of the comments out there, especially by Councilman Conrad Taylor, who I will be addressing, and his point participation in this in just a second.
Yeah.
But I've heard a changing narrative coming from the progressives and the college liberals and their supporters that are constantly saying, well, no, you just don't understand. It's about racism. It's about Donald Trump. It's about freedom. It's about fear. It's about intimidation. The story has changed. It's about white supremacy. I keep hearing a different version of why or what you guys were doing. So I want to understand. You said that you're coming out to give away hot chocolate.
Yes.
To promote an economist speaking at Binghamton University. You had a cutout of Donald Trump. Okay. Are these things... was in your conversation, I mean, you're white. Did everyone go, hey, we're white, let's go out there and talk about white things, which I don't think an economist, hot chocolate, or a cutout of President Trump are indicative of racism?
No. Yeah, it's crazy how the narrative has changed. And from the beginning, it was, the starting point was they're doing it illegally. They didn't get their permit. This is not a legitimate table. That was the first point.
That was an argument that was made, and I think in some of the video, I've seen an hour and a half of video from different perspectives, unedited, of the event since it happened, starting on Thursday night from several of my sources. And I've been trying to make sure the news media gets this as well. So I've seen literally 40-minute blocks of uninterrupted video. One of the arguments that came up is, well, you're not the college Republicans, but TPUSA is not authorized to be able to.
Yeah, so their argument was that TPUSA is not yet chartered. We're working on it, by the way, but we're not yet chartered, so we're not allowed to table. You know, this is all nonsense. This is just things that they were saying to try to get us off. They were coming up with a whole bunch of legal mumbo jumbo to try to get us to pack up and leave. Okay,
let me stop again. Has any organization that is not chartered ever tabled at Binghamton University?
For sure. This is not the first time.
Okay, and when you say chartered, I assume that means an official club.
Yeah.
Is there something like you need a certain number of people, or what is it? What is that?
Well, yeah, we have our the TPUSA organization. They're currently working on that, but essentially what charter means is that you are receiving money from the school.
Okay,
right?
So you're not TPUSA is an organization that doesn't get money from taxpayers through the university to the students.
Not yet. I mean, we're working on getting chartered, which is the official term, but no, we don't receive the money from the school yet.
So they're a free organization.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's free, no taxpayer money involved. It's just students that say, hey, we have a similar point of view.
Yeah, we support this. Yeah, that's it. It's just we support this organization. We're going to work for this organization.
So since you don't get government funding, that's a problem. Because you're not getting government funding via the university, that's a problem for some people.
Michael, don't you know? The government needs to spend on everything.
Okay. So the lack of government intervention is a problem.
Yeah, of course.
Because I want to make sure people understand, what are we talking about? What are we really talking about? Because we're talking about, it's not legal. You mean it's not government funded? Not the same thing. Students can say anything if they want to. I mean, that's freedom of speech, right?
Of course.
Because that's what colleges are supposed to be about.
Oh, yeah.
Free exchange of ideas.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought. But I cut you off there, so go ahead.
Oh, yeah, sure. So the narrative started off, we're doing this illegally. Total nonsense. I think they realized that that's not really a working argument. So they switched it over and they said, they are promoting gun violence. They are putting all of our lives at risk. What? What does that even mean? Half of the tables, one of the tables was promoting an event, an economic event. The other table was promoting an organization. Now, that organization had posters up, about 6 posters, I would say. Maybe 2 of them had something to do with guns, because TPUSA is pro-Second Amendment.
Okay.
That is very clear. So 2 of the posters were pro-gun, and that means that we were all promoting gun violence?
Okay. Now, this is an interesting point, and it's an important one.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people may not be aware. So, and there is a picture, and I'm going to show it right now real quick on the screen, just so people know what I'm talking about here. And I'm going to get to what this article is saying and what this image is. And you can blow it up for yourselves. It's coming from the Binghamton Review, 2019. The leftist mob harasses conservative students at BU. So you can look it up there, and I'll kind of be coming back to this. But in that image, you can see, and I'll explain the image a little bit later, what we see is there is a poster that shows an AR-15 and a couple of other firearms.
Yeah.
But it's it's saying freedom of expression here.
Oh, yeah.
Freedom of the Second Amendment. So I want to be very clear. That's one of the images, saying that Americans should have the right to have a Second Amendment. Is that threatening?
Yeah, I mean, regardless of whether we were doing it for guns or not, even if we were doing it for guns, how is that threatening? How is that promoting violence? I hear people saying it's so bad that we're doing this because, the school shooting just happened, and we're doing this because of the school shooting.
Right. Good point. And
yeah.
So let's backtrack again, people know, again, we want full context here, so everyone understands what are we really talking about. So in full context, you guys went out at what time?
We were gathering materials at 10. The actual tabling began around 10:45 to 11.
Okay, let's call it 11 o'clock.
Sure.
And in California is 3 hours behind us.
Yes.
So at 11 o'clock, it's 8 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
At that moment, when you walked out, did you know there was a shooting?
No.
That there was a shooting event where a very troubled 15-year-old decided to commit suicide and kill others.
Yeah.
Did you know about that?
Nobody knew about it.
Okay. So there was no sudden plan, hey, there was a shooting, let's take advantage of it.
Oh yeah, this is such a good idea. Why don't we, it's a ridiculous notion that we planned this in any way.
Okay.
It's almost conspiratorial.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Okay, so, and it's not unreasonable. I think most people didn't hear about the story. It didn't get national until roughly 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Mm-hmm. So that's about 2 hours after the event started or the incident started in California, 2 hours after you started your tabling. So did you guys get a notice about there was a shooting?
So I left. I had to go do a meeting in the middle of this tabling. So around like 11:30 to 12, I went to my meeting. Somewhere in that meeting, I got a notification on my phone.
Okay.
That's when I found out.
Okay. So well into the event.
Yeah, well into it.
Okay.
Nothing we could do about it.
Right. Life happens.
Yes.
No one knows. No one can plan. Oh, today will be a school shooting. That.
Yeah. No.
You can say, hey, today there's going to be a shooting in Chicago. That you can plan for.
Oh, yeah.
Because I guarantee you this weekend, 30 people got shot in Chicago. Because
nobody talks about it, by the way.
No. Because every weekend, 30 people get shot in Chicago and Baltimore and in Detroit. But anyway, that side point. So you're having that. And in the image I see, which it looks like it was at the beginning of your tabling, that image I just showed, and I'll show it again. The picture shows that there's 4. There's 4 of you there. Or is there 5?
So there.
I know there's a picture of Donald Trump there, but there's about 4, maybe 5 people.
So
I know
during that picture, there was 4. It floated around because there was 3 of us in the beginning. Then there was 4. Then there's 3 again and 4 again, and it rotated around the 3 to 5 number. Okay,
and so it looks like this was somewhere around 1 o'clock. And 1 o'clock, roughly, between 1 and 2, according to the picture and the time frame that it's in, it looks like there was no crowd.
No.
Students weren't coming around to say, oh, we're going to complain.
No, not at that moment.
So you had been there for over 2 hours. No one cared.
Yeah, I mean, we got a little bit of engagement. There were people that came over to debate or call us racists, things like that. People came over in support, but there wasn't a big showing like those other videos.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. And that's, I want to be clear what I mean.
Yeah.
There wasn't a mob growing.
No,
there wasn't a crowd growing saying, oh my God, I have fear. This is an expression of hate. This is something I can't live with. This is somehow interfering with my ability to live my life that you had that small table.
Not at that moment.
Okay.
Yeah.
So somewhere after, between 1:47 to 2:18 p.m. that afternoon, suddenly a crowd starts showing up.
Yeah. It started with only a handful of people. They came over and made it very clear that they were not leaving. This was when we had a crowd form, and they spent about 10 minutes talking to me about school policy, about how I'm not allowed to be here. I wasn't allowed to interrupt them, by the way. This was a 10-minute speech that they were making about, and this code says this and that and this and that. And then at the end of it, they go, okay, so now you have to leave. And I go, no. If you let me make my point, I'm not leaving. The First Amendment, guarantees my right to stay here, and I don't think school policy will go over the First Amendment or the Constitution in any way. And I made that point very clear. I believe they went through the whole argument again about school policy, and then I said, nope, not leaving. And I think that's when they realized that this whole argument was a waste of time, and they started resorting to other means.
Okay. Now, everything we've been talking about so far, I want people to understand that everything you're mentioning seems to be exactly what was said by the Binghamton Review. The reporters, a school newspaper, the Binghamton Review, in their article, Leftist Mob Harasses Conservative Students at BU, as I show on the screen right now, they go into this story. And so far, everything you're mentioning is matching up. That you had gone out there, time frame, and that no one was really opposed to it, no one was worried about it, until, in particular, the one woman who was pictured here right now, and she was very public. She knew she was being recorded on cell phones and videos. So she was very vocal, very angry, very agitated, and one of the provocateurs in trying to incite a riot, it would seem.
Definitely one of the main characters in this whole saga, I would say.
Screaming. And at the same time, we see that there was a comment coming from agents or individuals. They appear to be leftist, progressive, liberals at Binghamton University, decided that, well, because there was Trump supporters, and I'll actually read the quote of the image as provided by the Binghamton Review. On the left, it says, today on the spine, Trump supporters are actively advocating for the Trump administration and gun violence. Again, an image in support of the Second Amendment doesn't mean gun violence, but this is what they're saying.
Yes.
They go on to say, join us at 2 as we disrupt this space that Binghamton has allowed students to create and protest the racism, homophobia, and xenophobia that has erupted from the Trump and his supporters. Okay, before I go further. So they've already detailed that at 2 o'clock, an event that's going on that is not drawing a crowd, that does not have opposition by students or the university, that they were going to create an opposition, that they were going to create an incident, that due to their xenophobia of someone having an idea that
There's a dragon on the wire, breathing digital flames. No sound bites allowed is the name of his game. With a coffee in one hand and his puppy on his lap, cigarettes curling, smoking his political trap. Michael Vass roars through the screen, he flies, painting red and blue skies with his fiery cry. He's the world's watchdog, calling out the bluff. Right wing mouth.
Hello, everybody. There we go. We got the sound back on. It's Michael Voss, your host for No Soundbites Allowed. It is Sunday, May 11th, Mother's Day, and we're happy to be here with you. It's now 5:41 in the afternoon. I apologize for those who said, well, Mike, you're a little bit late. You said 5:15. If you have a 5-year-old child, or if you own dogs that are older, then you know what I just experienced. I have a 14-year-old dog. We had walked and everything seemed fine. He's feeling a little bit off under the weather. And he came back, and just as I was about to get back on, he said, nope, we got to go back out again. He wasn't quite done. Wound up, he had gas. Who knew? But much like a 5-year-old child or any other older dog, you take care of them. You take care of their needs. You don't know. You try and work with them. And he's a good dog. He's a good boy. So if he was acting up, that made me sure, yep, something was up. He was, if he's making that noise, that means he's not feeling well. So I thank you for being patient with me. And again, it's not like I'm not ABC, CBS. I'm not like the mainstream news media. I'm one man trying to do the job that these news organizations do. I don't have staff. I don't have money. So it's all on me, and we're doing it live. So there you go. So I thank you for being patient with us as we now come back, and we're going to go over some of the things. Now, in the videos that you did see, though, I want you to understand they were coming from 2020, the coverage we did then. And you may have noticed I was very upset in one of them because threats of violence were made against me, my family, my friends, businesses that I was associated with, because I dared to be black, Hispanic, and a Republican running in an election. That was for my 2020 Broome County legislators race, a district that I was outnumbered. The district I was in was 80% Democrat, 20% Republican. I wound up getting, I think it was 38% of the vote. Democrats were voting for me. That was actually well above what was expected for me to get in that race. They thought I'd lose by a significant landslide, like 10%. I got 36% of the vote, 38%. But I was attacked throughout that entire race. BLM, Antifa, Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow, also known as PLOT, Indivisible New York, all progressive leftist organizations were going throughout the community telling black people, Hispanic people, people of minorities to not vote for me because I dared to be a Republican. How dare I? And their answer to that was threats of violence. And at the same time, in 2020, the summer of love, we saw across this nation the same thing we're seeing right now. College after college, protest after protest, buildings being taken over, students being intimidated and threatened with violence, arsons taking place. It's the same environment. So we should be prepared that as we go further into this summer, as we move forward with Donald Trump, we may see the same thing. They keep telling us, you're silencing, Donald Trump is silencing free speech. MAGA is silencing free speech. But I want you to remember, during then and now, what happened? What did we do to silence free speech? We actually gave transparency. I was reporting at events, having people on, showing the receipts of what was being said online. Mind you, those online accounts I showed you, not one of them got pulled. Even though they were using racial slurs, even though they were threatening violence, and there were many more than the ones I showed, guess what? Not one of those individuals got removed. Not one. But I was under suppression. My channel has been suppressed for 2 decades. I've been battling against the algorithms and the social media giants for 2 decades because I dare to be a person of color, a guy with a permanent suntan that happens to be a Republican. I can tell you that in 20 years of doing politics, going door to door, knocking on doors, promoting candidates, running for elected office, I never had one Republican ever say to me what BLM and the progressive leaders of tomorrow, what the Democratic Party and the socialists, what they said about me, the racial slurs they used, the threats and violence they attempted. Yeah, that never came from the right. Yet I was told every single time, and I still get told often now, the right is racist. I've never experienced it. The closest thing to racism I've ever received from the right is showing up at an event and had some of the individuals who don't know, they may not know who I am. Usually it's because I'm in a city that they may not know me from. And I'll show up in an event and they'll go, "Are you a Democrat?" No, I'm a Republican. "Oh, okay. Just wondering." Yeah, I know. Black, usually the message in the media is black people must be Democrats. They must be progressives or socialists. They can't be allowed to be anything else. They don't have that choice per the media, per some unnamed elite out there. We're not supposed to be anything but Democrat. And yet, here I am. There are many of us. But when I go to cover leftist organizations, when I go and cover their rallies, their riots, their attempts at arson, when I listen to them, when I have an event and they come and interrupt it, yeah, they're threatening violence. They're calling me every name in the sun. And they only do it when they have me outnumbered. I literally have video. And yeah, I'm sidetracking for a moment here, folks, but I literally have a video where I was doing a Back the Blue event in Binghamton, New York. And I literally was surrounded by 50, maybe 70 protesters, so-called protesters, members of BLM, Antifa, and Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow, including Messiah Andrews, surrounded by 50 to 70 of them. The news media ran away. They were covering the event. They ran away because they were afraid of the violence, because I was being screamed at, I was being cursed at, slurs were being hurled at me by 50, maybe 70 individuals. And I stood there for an hour speaking to them, answering their questions, tackling them before I walked away, because they had nothing else to offer, because they didn't have substantive questions. They just had, "You're supposed to be a Democrat because you're black, because you're Hispanic. You must be a Democrat because you're black, because you're Hispanic." That's all they could offer. And I have to tell you, that was very informative. And we're looking at another environment created by the very same colleges those kids went to. They went to Binghamton University. But we're seeing the same thing at Cornell. We're seeing it at Columbia College. We're seeing it at the University of Washington. We're seeing it across this country again. And we should be aware. But, okay, I wanted to get that off because seeing it again triggered me. So there you go. But we wanted to talk today about Donald Trump. We wanted to talk about the homeless. We wanted to talk about homeless veterans, and I am an advocate for those who are homeless, and especially homeless veterans. I always have been. I've done many events where, just because I'm talking about my experience of being homeless and how people can be helped who are homeless, who become homeless. About 26% of the nation can at any point in time become homeless. It's not always a mental issue. It's not always a choice. It's just life happens. And some people will experience homelessness. Sometimes it's only for a week. For a lot of people, it can be a year. For some people, sadly, it starts to be 3 or 5 years. And once you get into that pattern, it is very difficult to get the people back out of the streets. They become accustomed to that lifestyle. And sadly, some of them become also addicted to drugs or alcohol. And it makes it more and more difficult to help them. The sooner you can help someone who is homeless, to change their lifestyle, the sooner you can help them have a better life. I know. It happened to me. No, I didn't get hooked on drugs. No, I didn't. I wasn't an alcoholic. And I wasn't homeless for a year. Thank God. But it was because I was working diligently and I had a couple of lucky breaks along the way to get a job, to be able to save some money, to be able to rebuild my life. So I'm very much into that issue, and Donald Trump appears to be as well. In fact, that's what he has been doing. He made a promise about this, and we're going to get to that. And I look forward to hearing everyone's comments. Whether you agree or disagree with any aspect of it, please do let me know. Hello, Alabama Barbie. Thank you for being here with us. Thank you. He is my puppy. His name is Genghis Khan. He is feeling better. Thank you, Grace. Yes, you have 3 puppies. You know how it can be sometimes. I only have the one. But I want to start back up with we're again hearing, and we've been talking about this for a couple of weeks now. There are more judges. The left is so busy fear-mongering that they're again saying, oh my God, Trump could deport American citizens. I will refer back to what we were saying last week, what I've said on the Liberty First, the Wednesday roundtable that we have. Cannot happen. Cannot. There is no way legally in any format that an American citizen can be deported. You cannot lose your citizenship. Cannot be done. Doesn't matter who's president. Doesn't matter who's in the White House. Cannot be done. Doesn't matter what they say. It cannot be done. And there would be outrage across the entire nation if even one American citizen was actually deported. Illegal aliens are being deported because they're criminals and they're not American citizens and they don't have the rights of an American citizen. And we don't have any reason to put each and every one of the 8 million illegal aliens that entered this nation in the last 4 years into a trial, which they don't normally get. They have hearings, not trials. And the Democrats want each and every single one of those 8 million legal aliens to go through a trial so that they can determine whether they stay or not. That's not the process. The process created with Democrats is that they have hearings. And once they are determined that they can be deported, they can be deported. And we've seen that over and over again. Again, the Trump administration is going by the law, and they are enforcing the law, not the feelings. Democrats have feelings. They don't want to deport these illegal aliens. They don't want to deport MS-13 or Venezuelan gangs or any of the other 98 gangs that have infiltrated the United States from around the world. They don't want to deport them. They want them here. They don't care about the crime. In fact, the crime is a good thing because now they have an excuse. Oh, you've been a victim. You need Democrats to help you because you can't help yourself. They don't want you to help yourself. They don't want you to be self-sufficient. They want you to live off of Uber. They want you to live off of the various prepared meal programs. They want you dependent. They don't want you independent. So they're happy to have crime because then you're going to come to them and say, what are you going to do? Can you pass a law? Can you do something for me that will help protect me, save me, do something? And when you do that, well, then you've lost your rights. You lost your freedom. You lost your independence because that's what they want to do. So we're seeing more of these judges. And if you notice, the stories have been dying down. It was a big news week, like a week and a half ago. He's got gas. I'm being told about my dog. I know what's going on with him now. So they have a week and a half. A week and a half ago, it was the biggest news. And then nothing happened. And we found over and over again, as most Americans have found out, no, it's not real. It's not a real story. There is no real danger to American citizens. Yes, illegal aliens who are violent and or those who just broke the law entering this country, they can and will be deported. But not American citizens. No one has suggested that. Oh, but Trump made an offhand remark that, criminals in the United States should be deported. Well, yeah. And you can't make a joke? You can't. He's trolling the news media, knowing that they're going to go crazy on that, to focus on only that. Has Trump asked Congress to change the law about deporting American citizens, about taking away any American citizen's citizenship? Not once, not one story, nowhere. You know they would leak it in a heartbeat if that was suggested. It's not being done, not real. And I want you to remember that. This is about fear-mongering. This is about making you dependent. It's about making you a slave to your emotions and attaching you hook, line, and sinker to Democrats and progressives. But let me move on. I want to play something for you guys. Earlier this week, the Trump administration... Oh, wait a minute. I forgot that I didn't have my camera on. Sorry. Okay, so earlier this week, I want to play something very short. My good friend, as many of you know, Larry Sharp is a good friend of this channel and me personally. I've known Larry for about 10 years now. Larry is a libertarian. Sometimes we agree. Sometimes we very much don't agree, which can be very entertaining for some people. But Larry, also a Marine, good friend, like anyone, when we don't agree, we just don't agree. That doesn't make him my enemy. It doesn't mean that we're not friends. It doesn't mean that we stop talking. We don't stop talking to each other. We just have a difference of opinion, and we talk about it, and we have the conversations. We have arguments. That's professionally and personally. That's life. See, but we're being told now, but you have a different point of view. You have a different ideology. You can't be friends with someone else. I grew up long before that. That's stupid. That's a new thing. That's a new college indoctrination. No one was saying that. Throughout all of the hundreds of years of the United States, people have had different political ideas, had different feelings, different views on laws, and we lived together without any problem. Now, in the last 20 years, you can't date someone, you can't talk to someone, you can't be a friend with someone who has a different political ideology than the one that has been approved by the mainstream news media. That is a problem. Not having a different point of view, not being MAGA or Tea Party, being a conservative or Republican, a libertarian, Green Party, that's not the problem. The problem is when you say you can't, because of the color of your skin, your gender, your sexual preference, because somebody else said you don't have that choice. Not in America, you can't do that. Now, Larry, and you'll see here, earlier this week, Donald Trump, the Trump administration, to be clear, put out an idea. Self-deportation. Kristi Noem came out and she said, here's a policy from the Trump administration. We will pay illegal aliens $1,000 to leave America. Just that simple. Here's $1,000, get out of America. Go back to your home country. We'll pay for part of your flight to whatever country you came from. Go back home. Once you're there, you'll get $1,000. There's been a lot of talk about that. Now, my friend Larry he's similar to me in his viewpoint. I think it's a horrible idea, but Larry had a different idea. I just want you to hear a little bit of what he had to say about that earlier this week, because very often people will watch this program and go, but you're the only one. We're the only ones that feel the way that we feel. The only ones that look at the law and think the way that we think. No one else, because we are being told by the mainstream media, no one else is like you. No one else has the same idea you do. You are alone because you're MAGA or you're America First or you're a Republican or conservative. No one thinks like you. You're all by yourself. That is a lie. Let me show you what I mean. Because I'm against paying criminals, rewarding criminals, ever. I don't care what the policy is. I don't care whatever the issue is. And I know cities in San Francisco were paying criminals $1,000 a month not to commit crime. That's called embezzlement. Well, not embezzlement. That's a bribe. You're bribing the criminals not to commit crime. And what happens when you stop paying those criminals? They go back to committing crime because they're criminals. So take away the extortion and you still have the same problem. So no, never reward crime because you never get rid of the underlying crime. The criminal will always go back to the crime once the money is done, once they use it up. So let's see what Larry has to say about this.
Says it's a smart move. From what I've seen, it's cheaper than normal process. It is cheaper, but it's not going to work. I don't think it's smart. I think it's cheaper. Yes. Mike says, oh, yeah, okay. Mike's not on board. He says, I hate the idea of rewarding criminals. This never works. True. This is not a good idea. It doesn't work well. And here's the worst part, Mike. This makes Trump look bad. I'm serious. It makes Trump look bad. It makes it look like what he did didn't work. So now he's doing this thing. It looks like he's running out of money or he's scamming. The look is not good. And it's not good because of the communication. This could have been communicated a whole lot better, and it isn't, right? But it isn't communicated well. You know this as well as I do. The Democrats going to take this and run with this for the next 6 months or whatever. Or, oh, he's failing, it's not working, blah, blah, blah. And sadly, it's going to work. Sadly for Trump, it's going to work. His team screwed this one up. This was not the right move for them.
Now, isn't that interesting? The Republicans and libertarians, many Americans, had the same view that me and Larry do. We're the ones being told, no, you just don't understand. And some Democrats there are many Democrats who like this idea. They want the $1,000 for those criminals because we're paying them, we're giving them something back. But overwhelmingly, the American people don't agree with this. But we're being told, no, but you can't agree with a libertarian. You can't agree with a Republican. You can't agree on these issues. And I have to say, why not? Because everything Larry said, I agree with. This was badly done. It was badly communicated. Absolutely. I don't think it is cheaper. The cost of deporting one illegal alien is $17,000, which I think is absolutely ridiculous. This is because of Democrats. This is because of the bureaucracy that we have created under the Democrats and Republicans. The status quo mentality is, oh, we can't get rid of these people. Put them in courts and they'll stay in courts for years and years and years. That's where the $17,000 comes from. Years and years of paperwork being pushed left and right, justifying all of the people working in the government. No wonder we have so much bloat in our government. We have people just passing papers for years and nothing gets done. And that's a problem. So it costs $17,000. And under this proposal, yeah, we'd save about $15,000, $16,000 per illegal alien that leaves America. Guess what? America is spending $7 trillion a year at this moment. This is the holdover budget from the Biden administration. And even if Trump were to get it down by $2 billion, we'd be spending $5 trillion. Assuming we get rid of the $2 trillion for Doge. I don't think that's going to happen. Say we did. We'd still be spending $5 trillion a year. Do you think that $16,000, a couple of million, even $1 billion, makes a dent in $5 trillion of spending? Saying that we're saving money isn't worth it. It's not enough money to care. It really isn't. I mean, we could do a lot with that money, absolutely. We could never spend it in the first place because it's inflationary. We could spend it on the homeless. We could spend it on children. There are better places we could spend the money, absolutely. But we're rewarding criminals, and those criminals will come back and commit more crimes because that's what they want. It's just free money to them. They will abuse this system over and over again. It's a bad idea. Larry is correct. I agree. You know what? We're not alone. And they go, but you can't disagree. You're a Republican, so you must just believe everything that Trump says. When did I stop being a human being because I was political? But you don't have a choice. You're MAGA, so you have to agree with them. Since when did I give? Where is the document, the contract that says that just because I have a political ideology, I suddenly lose all individual right to agree or disagree on any particular issue, to have my own viewpoints about anything? See, the reason why they say that is because progressives do that. You see that all the time. The Democrats, the progressives, and socialists, they punish each other unless they obey everything to the word. They cannot deviate at all. And they expect everyone else acts the same way. That's not true with third parties like libertarians or the Green Party. It's not true when it comes to people like Republicans and conservatives. We don't obey mindlessly, blindly obeying everything that we are told. We have opinions. We have reasoning. And we're not alone. And I find it interesting that this isn't the first time me and Larry, a libertarian, agree on issues. And there are people in the third parties that agree with me. People in the Green Party agree with me and Larry on this issue and many others. And that's the thing. If we can agree on something we don't like, we can also agree on something we do like. So the question isn't, oh, we should have mass deportation. See, that's the big thing. The question isn't, are we upset about mass deportations? We're not. It's the manner in which we do them. It's the language we use about mass deportations. That's the thing that gets the third parties like the Green Party. That's the wording that gets libertarians or Republicans upset. That's the difference. It's the way it's worded. The process we're using. Democrats are upset that we're not pushing enough paperwork to justify all of the people in the government that they shoved in there for no reason other than to slow the process down. That's it. And the fact that we're agreeing and we're looking at this going, why do we need to slow the process down? We don't need to reward the criminals so they come back to do it again. And we don't need to slow down the process like you see with the judges saying, no, but you got to do all the paperwork. You've got to spend years in trials clogging up the legal system for years, if not decades, just so that we can do something that literally the president has the power to do. He doesn't need to do this. This is all about punishing you for having a different opinion. Now, not everyone will agree with this. Not everyone will agree with me on this. But I want you to understand the reasoning of why I am saying it. And I want you to think about that for yourself. As always, in my audience, I want you to think for yourself. Are we really arguing about whether or not something that is already legal? We can already point to various laws saying, yes, the president has the power of mass deportation. We can point to the Constitution. We can point to various laws created by Congress. They have that power. And Democrats are fighting for the paperwork to slow down that process. Not because it helps protect American citizens. Not because it's anything except slowing down the process. So you should ask yourself, why would we want to do that? Where's the benefit? How does that help the American people? It doesn't. How does it help the Democratic Party? The longer they have more illegal aliens in America, the closer they get to getting a path to citizenship where they can get those people to vote Democrat so that they can maintain power. At the end of the day, that's what this whole argument about MS-13 and mass deportations, that's what it is from the Democrats. They're not worried about whether or not you can be deported. They know for a fact. The judges are all lined up. Everyone knows you can't deport an American citizen. You can't remove an American citizen's citizenship. You, as an individual, you can volunteer and say, I don't want to be an American citizen. You can revoke your own citizenship if you want. but the government can't take it from you, nor can they kick you out. Not in America. Everyone knows this. So they're using fear to slow down the process, to make you terrified so that they can maintain power. And they're telling you you're all alone in the way you think. And yet, there are many people who think just like you. Larry's audience, Libertarians, Green Party, I can point to a lot of people that agree, not just on this issue, but many things that are happening over the last 100+ days. They just want power. Let me go to the comment here. Joel says, if I go in my living room and a stranger is sleeping in my couch, then I give him $50 to leave, the next morning there would be 5 guys on my couch looking for $50 each. Yes, that's exactly it. Great point there, Joel, and I agree with you. Absolutely. So we have to keep these things in mind. They are important. But you say, but Mike, we could be saving so much money. We're already saving money. We've already saved about $400 billion. Let me double check my number. I want to make sure I give you the exact correct number. Hang on one second as I get that for you. I'm going to go to U.S. debt clock, which is an independent source and as is considered accurate. So there's our $7 trillion current federal spending officially. We're $2 trillion over budget. This is ridiculous numbers. We have $36.8 trillion in debt. But here's the number that should be interesting. That's hundreds, thousands, millions, $419 billion that have been saved under Doge. Is that the $2 trillion that we were told? No. Is it significant for the first 100 days? Absolutely. If we're able to keep this pace for the rest of the next 2 years, we're talking about $1.2 trillion potentially by the time the end of Doge. It's significant. And that $419 billion is more than enough money for us to do this. And this is, and let me show you right here. It's keeping promises to veterans and establishing a national center for warrior independence. That was on May 9th. This is coming from the White House, directly from the White House. Now, you may have heard something similar about this. Maybe. But most of the news media really didn't cover this. Again, this is another story that's been somewhat suppressed that you're not supposed to talk about. Hang on one second. Todd.
I fed him.
What's going on?
He's saying he's got to go back.
Because I know he doesn't, because he didn't have anything to do last time.
I just gave him food. Calm down for a little bit. He's still working.
Come here. Come here. Because I know you.
He's like very restless.
Yeah, but
Pacing in the hallway.
hang on one second, folks. Hang on one second. My dog is really, he's, I don't know. Hang on. Come here.
Pacing.
Yeah, but I know he has
But
nothing.
he never does.
He has nothing in his tank.
Well, he does it.
Well, that's just now.
He's been like pacing. He just came in.
All right, give me a minute. We'll go. He's just has an attitude because I know he's got nothing in his stomach.
I mean, I just gave him something.
No, it wouldn't. Sorry, folks. If you're hearing, obviously my dog's having a moment. Fine. But let me get through this. And then I'll try and take care of my dog. It's like having a 5-year-old who's not feeling well and but they won't tell you why they don't feel well. And there's nothing you can point to that says why they don't feel well. Same thing here. Empty stomach, he's fine, but he's acting up. I don't know. Could be the weather. Could be spring fever. Anyway, but I want to go over this. So on May 9th, Donald Trump said that he is going to keep his promise. He made a promise to help house and protect veterans, which I think is important. We have a lot of veterans who are homeless right now. It's one of the largest groups of people who are homeless right now, are veterans. And we haven't done a whole lot to help these people. We should, but we haven't as a nation. And these are people who have sacrificed both their minds and their bodies for our nation because we asked them to, because we said, join the military. Do what the government says to do, whether you agree with it or not. That's what the dedication is. That's what the training is, to potentially give your life because it might help the government, might help your fellow American keep their rights, keep their life. Might. And very often it doesn't. Sometimes you have political events like what we see in Grenada or you see like Vietnam. Those are political. Didn't have to be. America didn't have to be involved in those conflicts, but we were. Some would even say going into Afghanistan or Iraq were purely political, that we didn't have to be there. And I truly say, if we weren't taking over Iraq or Afghanistan, then we shouldn't have gone. I say that about every war. If American troops are going to be on the ground, we should own that ground. That should become the territory of the United States. If even one American is going to bleed, they own the land that blood drops on. And if we're not willing to say that, if we're not willing to have that be the reality, then why are we doing it? Why are we involved in that conflict? That's my belief. You may disagree with that, but that's my reasoning. If we're going to send soldiers, we're going to own what those soldiers are fighting over. Period. Full stop. Doesn't matter where in the world it is. That's my opinion. So we owe these veterans, and we have not given what they deserve. You want single-payer health care? That's the VA. Guess what? Ask any veteran. 9 out of 10 veterans, you ask them about the VA, and they will tell you about substandard health care. You want to give the government even more power? Single-payer health care, like Bernie Sanders and AOC, they love to talk about this. The progressives love to say single-payer health care. It will make everything perfect. Yeah, they also agreed with Obamacare. Guess what? That failed too. That has been a complete failure because it doesn't help. And we're giving substandard. And the VA right now, under every president, Republicans and Democrats, has not lived up to the promise we made to these veterans when they went into those conflict zones. It isn't even up to the standard of Obamacare. So instead of, we used to have in Los Angeles, West Los Angeles, we used to have a medical center that took care of 6,000 veterans. It gave them somewhere to stay. They had housing, they had a chapel, billiard, they had pool tables, they had a theater. 6,000 veterans were being taken care of. Today, there's less than 3,000 veterans at that same facility. For some reason, the government used that property, used all of those facilities, and they gave it out to other businesses. They gave it out to their donors and to corporations. They wasted it. It's not that we don't have veterans that need somewhere to stay. It's not that we don't have veterans that need help. We still do. In fact, we have more today than we've had in 20 years ago. We have a need, but the VA gave it away because we weren't paying attention. Because we have presidents that this wasn't an issue for them. Because we've had politics that look down on our veterans for doing what we asked them to do. Well, under the Trump administration, we're changing that. Because Trump is doing the mass deportations and he is punishing sanctuary cities and sanctuary states for taking money that should be going to American citizens, and instead they're spending it on illegal aliens. Well, Trump has said, take the money, take it away from the illegal aliens, deport those illegal aliens, and use the money like the money that was used to put illegal aliens in 3-star and 4-star hotels, take that money and use it and spend it on the veterans. Give them back their 6,000 seats, those 6,000 beds. Give them back their billiards. Give them back their theater. Give them back their church. Give them medical coverage. Give them what we promised. Take the money away from the illegal aliens who are criminals, who never should be in America in the first place. We've closed the border. We're not having them come in. Let's get them out and let's take care of our people. And this is Orange Man Bad. This is what they're calling Orange Man Bad. This is what they're protesting at the colleges. This is why they're Antifa are running around in our colleges trying to take over buildings and arson, because Donald Trump is keeping his promise and he is doing something that is a benefit to our nation, taking care of the people who made sure we get to stay free. I don't know what to say about that, folks. This is what Democrats are fighting against. Every single Kilmar, Abrego, Garcia, every member of MS-13 and Tren de Agua, all these gangs, all these sex slavers, all of these human traffickers, these drug dealers from overseas or from outside the United States, that the Democrats are fighting tooth and nail to keep in America. That's one more veteran that has to sleep out in the cold, that isn't getting medical treatment, that isn't getting mental health treatment. That's one more person that the Democrats are throwing away because they don't like the military, because they don't like this or that war that we asked those people to fight. I want you to realize that's the trade-off you're making. That's what the left is asking you to accept. No, take back the MS-13. Take back the gang members. Take back the drug dealing. Take back the human trafficking, the child trafficking. Take back the gang violence in your neighborhoods. Take that all back and leave those veterans who were fighting because we asked them to, let them rot on the streets. That's what the left is asking you to choose. I refuse that. I refuse that. And then because I refuse that trade-off, they say, well, you're orange. You support Orange Man Bad. You're a Trumper. You're MAGA. You're America First. You're evil. Evil. Call me whatever you want. Call me an istphobe and anything else you want. I want to take care of those veterans. I think that if my tax money has to be used, then yes, take care of those veterans and do not reward the criminals. Do not reward the illegal aliens because they are criminals, first and foremost. Absolutely, without question. Legally, by definition, they are criminals. You can soften it and say, well, they're undocumented migrants. Call it whatever you like that lets you sleep at night. They are criminals, and we shouldn't be spending money on them. Yes, I know. I'm going to take them out. Yeah, I know. I'm going to take them out. All right, folks. My dog is losing his mind. I had way more to talk about. What I'll do is I'm going to end the show. And then once I take care of my dog, I will come back on later tonight and I will cover the mayor of New Jersey, Newark. His name is Baraka, Mayor Baraka. And I will cover Mayor Baraka in detail about why he should be arrested, which goes in line with what we're seeing here, that the left is trying to protect him even as he commits crimes. They're more than happy to have crime as long as it helps their political agenda. And we will talk about that. But that will be a separate video, a separate live stream. I'm going to end right now. I'm going to take care of my dog. I hope everyone's having a great day. I hope your mom is having a fantastic day. But I got to take care of this. And then we'll be back. Please like, share, subscribe. Life happens. We're doing it live. Life happens. But I will be back soon. Okay, folks?